Chapter 461, The Purple Moon Entertainment Company. Well, there's no wine. As Zhao Feng thought of the appearance of Dai after drinking, he looked anxious and replied in a low voice, Whoa, never mind. Dai was attracted to the hot pot. It took 3 plates of meat and poured them into the pot directly. After dousing them several times, it scooped them out with a strainer and gave 2 spoonfuls to Little Hai. Then it ate 1 spoonful of meat itself. Yum yum. The sound of Dai eating was all over the restaurant. Ziqian sat at the round table, looking at Dai in surprise. The animal behaves like a human. With such a huge size, it seems to have a good appetite. Hiss. Ziqian smelled the meat and was tempted to taste it. He picked up 1 piece of meat, dipped it in the sauce, and then brought it into his mouth. The unique flavor of mutton instantly spread in his mouth, and the meat was tender. He had no trouble chewing it. The mutton tastes good. Ziqian's eyes brightened as he picked up a long piece of mutton chops. It also tasted tender. He looked at Zhang Han. He thought that his granddaughter was right and the food was really delicious. Everyone was immersed in the hot pot, and the restaurant was quiet. Zhang Han felt that something was missing. After thinking for a while, he formed his spiritual force into a silk thread. He opened the notebook and played some music quietly. In the middle of the meal, they slowed down and began to chat. Wang Ming and Ziqian discussed Go fervently. They were about the same age, so their conversation was happy and relaxed. Zixiniu and Rong Jiexin, Zhang Li and Zif also chatted with each other, and Xian would occasionally join them. Zhang Han put a plate of prawns into the pot. The size of the prawns from the mountain was larger, and they turned red and fully cooked after a while. Zhang Han scooped some of the prawns out and put them on his plate for 2 minutes. Then he started to peel them. He took off 1 prawn's head, removed its shell, pulled the body out, and then put it on Meng Meng's plate. Meng Meng gladly looked at Zhang Han, then picked up the prawn with chopsticks and ate it. When Meng Meng finished eating the first prawn, Zhang Han peeled the next one for her, and it went on like this. Meng Meng took a small bite. I need some sauce. Meng Meng murmured. She dipped it in a little sauce, held the prawn with her chopsticks, and slowly handed them to Zhang Han. Eat, Papa. Okay. Zhang Han looked at Meng Meng, his eyes full of tenderness. A gentle smile rose on his face. He leaned forward and ate the rest of the prawn. One couldn't tell exactly what being a father felt like. When Zhang Han was alone in Shangjing, he was everything to himself. He could do whatever he wanted to do and eat whatever he wanted to eat. After he had Meng Meng and Xian, he would first think about what Meng Meng and Xian wanted to eat. Meng Meng and Xian had become his first priority. The most important thing in his heart had changed. The simplest change was that he was willing to give his favorite food to his beloved. Meng Meng giving the food to him was a small act, but Zhang Han was satisfied. He continued to peel dozens of prawns and give them to Meng Meng and Xian. Xian ate them and fed Zhang Han in return. They had been sleeping together for a while, but still they couldn't get enough of each other. They were madly in love. They would make out once they had the time. However, they didn't have much time as other dating couples did because of Meng Meng and other things. Zhang Han didn't even have the time to buy the black silk stockings for Xian. Xian fed the prawns to Zhang Han. She suddenly remembered that she had eaten at this table before. At that time, she used mustard and kissed Zhang Han indirectly, and she was shy. But Zhang Han pretended to eat mustard and made her eat more. She remembered that Zhang Han was already a martial artist then. Then she thought of how obvious her little tricks were and Zhao Feng's expression when he sat opposite and tried not to laugh. Xian couldn't help smiling. For a long time, they all knew about the mustard. She was the only one who didn't know. HMPH. Yan, are you going to work later? Zixiniu suddenly asked. Yeah? Xian's beautiful eyes blinked, and she was a little excited. She said, I almost won Best Actress at the Hong Kong Film Awards. I already have a Golden Horse Award, but still I was a little sorry. I plan to work hard for it in the future. If I can, I would go for an Oscar. Xian smiled as she spoke. Xian was a little sorry that she had not won a Hong Kong Film Award. When she returned, she intended to make up for her regret. Besides, there was a financial problem, and she wanted to make money. But now, she didn't worry about money at all because of her super excellent husband. And an Oscar, the most famous and influential film award in the world, was the dream of every actor. Xian didn't hold out much hope for it. She would be satisfied if she could get a Hong Kong Film Award. Zhang Han looked at Xian's serious expression and grinned. If people knew what she was thinking, a random script or film could make her win the award. Zhang Han thought his strength was not enough and he was just a beginner, but his influence in Hong Kong could get things done more easily. However, Zhang Han chose not to do it. The best way for Xian to accomplish her dreams was through her own efforts. Xuanhuan didn't quite agree with Xian, so she thought and said, "You can't be so busy all the time. You have a husband and children, you should spend more time on them. Besides, if Han has something to do and leaves, who would look after Meng Meng?" She hadn't mentioned that since Xian wasn't short of anything, there was no need for her to work. Moreover, the entertainment industry was very complicated. Xuanhuan was more worried about the relationship between the married couple. If Xian was always on a business trip, she and Zhang Han would be separated for a long time. Beautiful women were always coveted by other men, and vice versa. If something did happen, they would get hurt, let alone Meng Meng. Hearing Xuanhuan's words, Zhang Han smiled and said, "I have nothing to do. I could always take care of Meng Meng. If Xian wants to work, she has my support. Right, Papa will always stay with me," Meng Meng muttered. Xian was delighted as she looked at Zhang Han thoughtfully. "I know." Zhang Han looked back at her. Xian looked at Xuanhuan and said, "Mom, don't worry, I won't be that busy, and the company will be renovated soon. We make our own decisions and have more freedom." It nearly finished. On the 11th to 14th floors, pieces of equipment we ordered will arrive in 2 days, Zhao Feng said. "Oh, all right, it's up to you." Xuanhuan smiled and said nothing more. She planned to remind Xian about it in private. A married couple shouldn't live apart all the time. Hey, it's their own business, you don't have to worry about it. Ziqian had just finished a conversation with Wang Ming. He looked at Xuanhuan and said with a smile, "I believe that Han can handle it. Fine, I will leave them alone." Xuanhuan shook her head and smiled. "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh." Dai shouted at them. They turned to look at it, and Dai stared at Zhao Feng and pointed at the table. Dai's table was empty, no food was on it. Its expression seemed to say, "Bring more food." Okay, so they would bring more food. Zhao Feng and Ahu got up and took more dishes from the small table on the other side. Dai and Little Hai ate enough. They know what people say. Ziqian looked at Dai and Little Hai and said, "Just no." Wang Zanzong seemed like he heard a joke, and he chuckled. They can understand what people say, and they are smart and powerful. They are not normal beasts. Yeah, they are my friends. Meng Meng pouted and said, "Ooh, ooh, ooh." Dai expressed its affection to Meng Meng. Meng Meng finished the last prawn, then she slipped to the ground. "I'm full." She ran to Dai's table and saw that it had another table of food. She said in surprise, "Oh, you eat so much." "Ooh. Ooh ooh ooh." Dai scratched its head and patted its belly. It had a big stomach for so much food. "Papa, where shall we go to play later?" Meng Meng turned to look at Zhang Han and asked him. "The mountain," Zhang Han replied. "Yeah, we're going to Xanadu later, Big Hai Hai, Little Hai Hai, wait for me, I'll get your present." Meng Meng mumbled and ran to the second floor. All the gifts from Singapore were on the second floor. "Oh, I haven't had such a good meal in a long time." Ziqian put down his chopsticks, let out his breath in a long exhalation, and said, "I'll take another look at the chessboard." Then he went to the sofa and sat to study the game. 2 minutes later, everyone finished eating. Zhang Han said, let's go to the mountain. Is everything okay there? Zhan leaned over and whispered in Zhang Han's ear. Let's go and find out, Zhang Han said with a smile. Zhan asked about the damaged places on the front mountain. Zhang Han didn't answer her directly, but his eyes had explained everything. Zhan understood and smiled. Then I'll clean up. Xuanhuan stood up and wanted to clean up the table. No, auntie, you don't need to do this, we will clean up later, Ahu stopped her and said in a hurry. Then Xuanhuan didn't insist. Before they left, Ziqiang still sat on the sofa, studying the game. Zhang Han looked at it, then smiled and said, you could continue when we come back at night, it's a tight game and it may take some time to have a winner. You're right. Ziqiang's eyes brightened and he said, Han, you have nothing special to deal with this afternoon, right? Well. Yeah? Zhang Han felt something indistinct. Now we can play several games on the mountain. Ziqiang laughed and waved his hand. The composition on the chessboard was ruined. He picked up the board and started to urge everyone. Xuanhuan, Yan, let's go. We are coming. Zhan couldn't help laughing. She took the bag and everyone went out. Dai and Little Hai sat in the back seat of Zhao Feng's Land Rover. As soon as they got in the car seemed to sink several centimeters. The beasts weighed too much. The cars drove to Mount New Moon, during which time, Zhao Feng made a few phone calls and asked people to send some tables and chairs. 10 minutes later, they arrived at Mount New Moon. The air here is quite fresh. Take a look at the forest, maybe there will be mushrooms after the rain. When they walked into the forest, Ziqiang looked around. Grandpa, this is Xanadu, Papa specially built it for Meng. It's beautiful on top, sitting on Dai's shoulder. Meng said earnestly. Huh? Ziqiang looked at Dai and was stunned. The beast seems to be bigger? While talking, they arrived somewhere and had a better view. Oh, this place is really good. Well done, Han. Ziqiang looked around. The lawn, pond, and flower sea formed lovely scenery. The tree is magnificent. It must be worth a lot. Ziqiang praised it. Worth a lot. Wang Ming's mouth trembled slightly. It is a divine object and can't be valued in money. It's priceless. He didn't expect that the place would be restored this much in such a short time. Han seemed to be an omnipotent person. Wang Ming sighed to himself. Mom, the flowers over there are very beautiful. Let me show you. Zhan smiled and walked Xuanhuan to the flower sea on the right. Big Hai, let's go. Meng pointed to one side of the flower sea, and Dai followed her step by step. Little Hai raised its head and walked slowly beside Dai. The flowers looked pretty. Xuanhuan kept praising everything. Pretty, aren't they? Zhan chuckled and said. The back mountain provides food for us, and there are many dogs there. Zhang Han has planned to build a lot of houses. Then you could come to live here when you are old. By the way, there are many night luminescent pearls in the pond, which will be bright at night. When they finished looking at one side of the flower sea, they went to the pond. There were many night luminescent pearls in the clear water. They were gorgeous. Then everyone finally got to the top of the mountain. Wang Zanzong and several people kept touching and hugging the Thunder Yang tree, and Ziqiang was confused. He wondered if the tree was a beauty. Meng, Dai, Little Hai, Zif, and Zhang Li all ran to the pet area. Zhang Han and Zhan stood hand in hand on the other side of the Thunder Yang tree and looked at the territory. After a few seconds, Zhan put her forehead on Zhang Han's shoulder and said gently, "It's nice to have you here." Zhang Han smiled and put his hand around Zhan's waist. He whispered in her ear, "Remember what I said last time?" What?" Zhan raised her head and pondered. "That." Zhang Han glanced at Zhan's good figure. Zhan blushed when she felt his eyes on her. She said nothing and just leaned her head against his shoulder. She agreed. Just then, a quiet cough came from behind. Master and Master's wife." Zhao Feng called them from 2 meters away. "What's wrong?" Zhan turned to ask. The entertainment company is going to make a plaque. What's the name of the company? I'll have Ziyong register later, Zhao Feng asked. Meng Meng Entertainment. When he said those words, Zhang Han felt a pinch at his waist. He looked back at Ziyan, who rolled her eyes and said, "You have only one Meng Meng in your mind, don't you?" "What?" Zhang Han confused. "Is she jealous of our daughter?" Zhang Han pondered for a moment. "Aren't you a romantic? Now you have me, so you become careless and make no effort on me." Ziyan said angrily in Zhang Han's ear, "What you want? Don't even think about it now." Wait, I just said the wrong thing. Zhang Han was at a loss. After he said that, he coughed softly, then he kept a straight face, looking at Zhao Feng, who tried hard not to smile. Zhang Han said, "If it's an entertainment company, call it the Purple Moon Entertainment Company." Zhang Han thought of Ziyan's nickname when they were on Darkwind Island in Singapore. He thought it was funny and memorable, so the company was named after it. Okay. Zhao Feng smiled and left after answering. He didn't intend to stay there and interrupt the couple's flirting. At the same time, he thought that only in front of his wife could the master have this kind of reaction that ordinary men had. In front of Meng Meng, he was a parent who spoiled the child. In front of his relatives and them, he was a steady leader. Sometimes, fate was intriguing. Zhao Feng felt very lucky to have met the master. A few minutes later, dozens of tables, chairs, and tent umbrellas were sent up, and they were placed in the pet area on the back mountain, beside the fish pond, and under the Thunder Yang tree. Probably less than a month. Zhang Han suddenly stopped talking. He just wanted to say that in less than a month, the Thunder Yang tree would transform the territory for a second time, and then the buildings here would rise from the ground. But when he thought about it, he decided to wait and leave it as a surprise for Ziyan. "What is it?" Ziyan asked curiously. "Well, I said that the company's night show, restaurants, and entertainment companies, as well as the airport behind the company, will soon open," Zhang Han said. "Oh, why do you care about that stuff? Are you talking about something else?" Ziyan's big eyes blinked. Just then, Zhang Han's cell phone rang. After picking up the phone and listening for a second, Zhang Han replied, "Come up." Then he hung up the phone. "Who is coming?" Ziyan was distracted. "It's Protector Leng. He brought something." Zhang Han smiled. Then, "Go on, I'll stay with Meng Meng," Ziyan said. She stood on tiptoe and wanted to kiss Zhang Han on the cheek. When her face came closer, Zhang Han turned his head toward her and kissed her on the lips. Ziyan pouted and rolled her eyes, running to the pet area. Looking at her running away cheerfully, Zhang Han shook his head with a smile and walked to the front mountain. Chapter 462, Choose a Kindergarten. Before going much further to the front mountain, Zhang Han saw Protector Leng on the edge of the forest, and he hurried to join him. "Grandmaster Zhang." Protector Leng laughed. He handed something over and said, "This is the storage ring, with a space of 4 cubic meters. All the things from Lizan are in here. The 5 elements furnace is also in it. From now on, the 5 elements furnace is yours, but the director said that you should keep your promise on the number of alchemy things produced." "Okay." Zhang Han smiled. He nodded and took the ring, putting his soul sense into it. Apart from the 5 elements furnace, there was a third stage spirit treasure, a football-sized dark star stone. Seeing it, Zhang Han's eyes seemed to brighten a little. It could be a jade shield, the same as the mountains and rivers flag. The mountains and rivers flag could hold an array, while the dark star stone could save energy after recording the array. If it was activated, it could function as a defense. Zhang Han could make it into a protective object for Ziyan and Meng Meng. With the 99 Earth-grade amulets sent by the Heavenly Talisman sect, their energy could also be sealed in the Jade Shield. All these layers of protection were just in case. Pretty good. Zhang Han smiled. The Dark Star Stone was a fine treasure. The others were 5 second-stage spirit treasures and over 30 kinds of first-stage spirit treasures. Zhang Han controlled his mind and all the items in the ring appeared on the lawn. Then he put them into his own space ring. His ring had a space of only 3 cubic meters. It was not as big as the storage ring. But Zhang Han felt that it was enough for him to put stuff inside. As for its space, he would refine and upgrade it later. Master Zhang, now you are the second director of the National Security Agency. Today, many protectors, seniors, and supervisors in the bureau wish to have a meeting with you. They all heard what happened today, and wanted to hold a formal welcoming ceremony for you. Protector Leng said. A welcoming ceremony? Zhang Han said earnestly, I have to babysit my child at home, so I don't have time for that. Okay. Protector Leng's expression trembled as he spoke with a wry smile. Then I'll leave, Master Zhang. If you need anything, please call me at any time. Protector Leng nodded. Okay. Zhang Han nodded. Protector Leng turned around and left. He kept looking back at the Thunder Yang tree and thought to himself. The tree grew into a divine object. My God, it's frightening. Master Zhang has a divine object, which means that he himself is a portable sect. Great, just great. Protector Leng thought as he left Mount New Moon. Zhang Han returned to the back mountain. As Ziqiang was looking around, he waved to Zhang Han. Han, come here, join us. Coming. Zhang Han went over to them in a hurry. Then he saw Wang Ming fishing by the pond. Zhang Han called out, Uncle. When Wang Ming turned around, he saw a green streamer flying toward him. After catching it, he said curiously, Isn't this a jade ring? But his expression changed when he felt it with spiritual force. A storage ring? Han, what? Wang Ming stood up and came up to Zhang Han, staring at him strangely. I already have one, you can have it. Zhang Han opened the chessboard and raised his hand, showing to him that the ring on his finger was the space ring. One could control a space ring with spiritual force, so any martial artist under the innateness stage could use the ring. All they needed to do was make the ring be in direct contact with their skin. When they were above the innateness stage, they could put their soul sense into the ring, which would make the ring have an owner. As long as the owner stayed alive, the soul sense in the ring would protect the ring from any other external force. This. Wang Ming paused and then smiled, shook his head, ran to the pet area, and found Wang Zanzong. Dad, this is a space ring. Han gave it to me. Do you want it? You keep it. I don't study arrays, so I don't need it, Wang Zanzong said with a smile. Then I'll keep it. Wang Ming put the ring on proudly. He stared at it for a while, then went back to the pond, fishing and admiring the ring. Xian and Zhang Li, as well as Rong Jiaxin and Zixini Wu, were sitting at the back. Zif went out for something. They sat under the canopy and watched Meng playing with Dai and Little Hai in the distance. Well, Big Hai, Little Hai, and Daha, stop running. Do you want to play the eagle chicken catching game? Meng, who was running and jumping, suddenly stopped and asked, Whoa, 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 whoa? Dai nodded. I have seen that on TV. Then let's play? Meng's big eyes brightened. Dai nodded again. Who wants to be the eagle? Meng asked. Whoa? Dai scratched its head. It was really a problem. All of a sudden, it glanced at Zhao Feng, who was wandering aside. It shouted, Ow, whoa, whoa, third, come here. Huh? Zhao Feng was confused. Then he came over and asked, What's the matter? Uncle Feng will be the eagle, who wants to be the hen? Meng asked again. Whoa? Dai pointed to itself. Let's get started. Meng ran to hide behind Dai and grabbed the hair on its right leg. Meng was not as tall as Dai's legs, so she looked like a tiny baby in front of Dai. Ooh, 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 ooh. Dai barked at Little Hai twice. It meant, make sure everybody is in line. Dai could talk to Little Hai directly, but it couldn't communicate with other dogs. Little Hai got the message and barked to the dogs. Then Little Hai ran to Meng. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, More than 30 dogs ran to the back of Little Hai and got in 2 rows. Their action was really fast, and Zhao Feng was speechless. I don't want to play. Playing games with Dai was not a good idea to him. Well, we're going to run, Uncle Feng. You should start catching us. But Meng Meng sounded too sweet, so Zhao Feng rubbed his hands and said, I'm coming. I'm an eagle. I've come to catch a chicken. Let me see which one I'll catch first. Slam. Dai's right foot didn't move a bit, it stepped forward with its left foot. Before Zhao Feng finished speaking, its left hand reached forward and slapped. Zhao Feng fell to the ground. I didn't do anything yet. Zhao Feng's heart was broken as he stared at Dai. Whoa, 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 ha ha ha. Dai grinned. Ha, ha ha, Uncle Feng. You are so stupid. Meng Meng kept laughing when she saw Zhao Feng lying on the ground from behind Dai's leg. I haven't started yet, right now. Zhao Feng slapped his butt and stood up. Slam. He was down again. Zhao Feng was dumbfounded. He would never get a chance to start the game. Whoosh. He quickly jumped up. Before he could stand up straight. Slam. He fell to the ground again. Zhao Feng used spiritual force this time. He got up and planned to run. Slam. The totally one-sided game continued. Once Zhao Feng stood up, he would be beaten down again. Rong Jiaxin and Xu Xianyu, who were sitting not far away, were stunned by their game. Xian pursed her lips and was just about to say, Dai, stop that. Zhao Feng's cell phone suddenly rang. Ouch, I have to answer this call. I can't play anymore. Meng Meng, you should continue. After Zhao Feng said that, he got up and ran to the other side. He was actually relieved. It was Liang Meng Kai calling, so he picked up the phone and said excitedly, ha ha ha, Meng Kai, you are really my lucky goddess. I was caught in a game and couldn't get out. Your call saved me. The eagle has gone. How do we continue? Meng Meng burst her lips and said, ooh, ooh ooh ooh. Dai scratched its head and shouted to Little Hai. Then Little Hai passed on the information. Over 30 dogs suddenly ran to the front of Dai. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Dai jumped around and made gestures to Meng Meng. Meng Meng thought for a while and then understood. Are they all eagles? How will you protect Little Hai and me? Bang, 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 bang. Dai punched itself in the chest. Don't worry, you have me. Let's start. Eagles are coming to catch chickens. Meng Meng grabbed the hair on Dai's right leg again. Then Little Hai gave an order. Howl, howl, howl. A group of dogs were running and jumping slowly. Some smart ones were just standing behind. The dumb ones, led by Alaska, Husky, and Samoyed, immediately rushed at Dai. The nickname 3 stupid sled dogs did fit these breeds of dogs. Bang, bang, bang. The game leaned to one side again. Meng Meng was very happy at first, but she gradually sensed something wrong. Looking at the front, Meng Meng grabbed her waist with both hands. HMPH, big hi, I don't like you. Woo, 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 woo. Dai turned around and explained with body language. How could you beat them away? You're not a good hen, you're a cheater. Meng Meng said and pouted. Whoa, 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 Dai explained with its hands. Dai decided to be the eagle. Little Hai became the hen, protecting Meng Meng and the dogs behind. Dai scratched the ground with all limbs, but it didn't come forward, just rolling and turning somersaults. They kept playing like that. Xian and the others laughed at the scene. Their game ended when Xian asked Meng Meng to drink some water. Near the Thunder Yang tree, Zhang Han and Ziqiang were buried in a heated go game. Wang Zanping and Wang Zhanhong sat aside as the audience and kept silent. After watching 2 rounds, they knew that Zhang Han was letting his father-in-law win. Han, shall we have another game? Wang Zanping's eyes narrowed slightly. He had some doubts about a raise in his mind, so he wanted to play chess to see how Zhang Han could crack it. Okay, Elder Wang, it's your turn. I need to drink some water. Ziqiang left the seat. As Wang Zanping took the seat, he said nothing and placed one piece ahead. Another game began. Wang Zanping was setting up an array. Zhang Han didn't stop him at all. Instead, he placed his pieces casually. Ziqiang was worried. Oh, you. Wang Zanping's array was about to be complete, and Zhang Han still placed his pieces smoothly. It's not bad, huh? Ziqiang nodded. Although he knew nothing about arrays, he could understand the Go game. At first, Zhang Han was at a distinct disadvantage, but he changed the situation. In the last 10 pieces, he managed to win the game. Ziqiang realized that Zhang Han was good. Wang Zanping was the person who had been pondering over the chessboard for a long time and came up with nothing. An array should be deduced in practice. So Ziqiang got his seat back. Zhang Han had stayed here to play chess with them until 4:30. Then he went to play with Meng for a while. At 5:30, they packed up and went home. On their way down the mountain, Zhao Feng approached Zhang Han and asked, "Master, Patriarch Chu contacted me through Liang Hao. He wants to pay a visit when you have time." "Then maybe sometime in the future," Zhang Han said. "Okay." Zhao Feng nodded. Everyone went to the fleet of cars. Zhang Han took Xian and Meng into the small and lovely panda car, while the others got in the luxury cars. Back at the restaurant, there were already more than 10 well-dressed men in line outside, and several people sat at the members' table inside. Zhang Han and the others walked in. Sun Donging stood up in a hurry. "Ah, boss, madam, and Meng, you are back. We all missed you. Ha ha ha, did you go out to have fun?" Liu Qingfeng greeted them. "Chairman Liu is here, why don't you go upstairs and chat with us?" Ziqiang said with a smile. "No, thanks, I'm here for dinner. I'll visit you when you're all settled in a few days." Liu Qingfeng shook his head slightly. Wang Qiang, Wu Liang, Pearson, Lin Xu, Zhao Du, and Yu Qingqing all greeted them. "Hello, everyone." Meng waved to them. Zhang Han and Xian smiled at everybody. Some of them went upstairs, and Zhao Feng and Zhang Han stayed on the first floor. As always, Zhao Feng sat beside Zhao Du. "Our boss and madam engaged, we wanted to take a look there." Later, Liang Hao said that there were too many people and they couldn't take care of us if we went, so we might as well wait to attend their wedding. Zhao Du moved his body and said, "Yeah, there were too many people." Zhao Feng nodded. He looked at Zhao Du and said, "By the way, were you a director of some entertainment company?" "Yes, what's the matter?" Zhao Du said strangely. "Boss's entertainment company will open soon. If you are interested, you can apply for a position later." Zhao Feng nodded. "Do they provide food?" Zhao Du asked. "Huh?" Zhao Feng paused. "What are you thinking?" "If you wish, they will." Zhao Feng nodded. "That's great. Tell me when they open, I'll surely help." Zhao Du patted Zhao Feng's arm with his hands, looking excited. Zhao Feng shook his head, then he turned to look at Sun Donging and asked, "Did you say that your father went to North America to learn about film and media companies?" "Yes." Sun Donging's eyes widened and he held his breath. He heard what they were talking about at the back, and he felt that his father might have a chance. "When will they come back?" Zhao Feng asked again. "In 3 to 5 days." "I see." Zhao Feng nodded and said nothing more. Sun Donging yielded to his curiosity. He went up to Zhao Feng and asked, Brother Feng, are you going to hire my father?" "I have that idea, but I need to wait for him to come back and ask him." Zhao Feng nodded. Sun Ming was a person of integrity, and he knew the boss's family well. As for Zhao Du, the entertainment company mainly concerned the master's wife. Hiring 2 acquaintances was a good thing. As for candidates and positions of other departments, Zhao Feng wanted to discuss it with Liu Qingfeng. He knew the master's strength was powerful enough and had a high position, but their foundation wasn't steady. Fortunately, as long as they asked, many people were glad to lend a hand. However, Zhao Feng did not dare to use those privileged people whom he didn't know. One may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. It was good for them to know Liu Qingfeng in advance, and he had been a great help. Sun Donging saw Zhao Feng nod, so he was excited and asked, "What position do you want my dad to hold? I feel that he is eligible to be a director." "You are right, I want him to be a director." Zhao Feng smiled and shook his head. In terms of the entertainment industry, no one in Meng Meng's security team knew about it. Zhao Feng planned to let Sun Ming give it a try first. If Sun Ming wasn't capable, he would make another plan. Zhao Feng was mature and behaved like a chief disciple. If it was a few years ago, he would ask Zhang Han about these things. Now he could make his own decisions. He would usually provide several choices for the master to pick from. For dinner, there were roast duck and fish as well as some vegetables. Even though Zhang Han cooked fast, it took him more than an hour. After dinner, it was about 8:30. Zif hurried back, holding a stack of documents. "Where have you been?" Zhang Li asked curiously. Wang Ming and others went back to the company's hotel to have a rest. They also needed to consider the relocation. Ziqiang, Xixiniu, Zhang Li, and Zhang Han stayed on the second floor. "I have been looking for kindergartens. I've sorted out the materials all afternoon," Zif said with a smile. "Kindergarten, so fast?" Zhang Han suddenly said. "There is no need to do it so soon. She could go to kindergarten next autumn, couldn't she?" Zif's expression froze while trying to say something. "No need, Meng Meng is going to be 4 years old. She has to go to kindergarten as soon as possible. Didn't we all agree before?" Xian replied. Hearing what Xian said, Zif added, "After investigating, I found out that a lot of local children began to take interest classes when they were half a year old, and there were various training classes. Children under 3 years old have attended many of them. I don't know if these classes make any difference, but many people did send their children to these classes. Most children go to kindergarten when they are 3 years old." "Well, Papa, I can go to kindergarten and play there." Meng Meng pouted and said, "Dot." Hearing Meng Meng's words, Zhang Han nodded and sighed softly, then said, "Let's talk about it." He still couldn't trust others to look after Meng Meng. Surprisingly, Meng Meng wanted to go to kindergarten. But what Zhang Han didn't know was that Meng Meng wanted to go to kindergarten with her papa. Ziqiang and Xixiniu said nothing, they just smiled and felt that their granddaughter was so sweet. "The kindergartens I've chosen are the best in Hong Kong. They all use 2 or 3 teaching languages, namely, Mandarin, Cantonese, and English. I have seen more than 40 kindergartens, but only 5 are suitable. Zhenyuan Kindergarten in Longqing District, Boshan and Anglican Kindergartens in Wanzi District, Victoria International Kindergarten in Causeway Bay, and the Hanji International School. The first 4 kindergartens have opened classes more than a month ago. If Meng Meng goes there, she can only be a student in attendance. The Hanji International School starts at the beginning of November, but the school is hard to get in. The number of students to be enrolled is 88 per year, but more than 1,000 people would sign up for it. Priority registration costs 12 million yuan, but I heard that the priority is gone. Yesterday's interview for children is over, and the specific quota will be released the day after tomorrow. Chapter 463, An Ace Cleaner. I've heard of these schools. They're all very good, but I don't know which one to choose. Xian blinked at Zhang Han and asked, "Do you have any ideas?" "Yes, next year, Meng Meng." Zhang Han stopped when he saw Xian puff out her cheeks angrily. Xian smiled and rolled her eyes at Zhang Han. "We're choosing a kindergarten, not a foster family. Meng Meng can go back home, okay?" Zhang Han shook his head, looked at Zif and said, "Tell me the specific information of these kindergartens." "Okay." Zif looked through the information she had recorded and said, "The recruitment interview of these kindergartens has ended, so we need to ask some relevant person for help if we want to get Meng Meng enrolled. Since the first 4 kindergartens have been open for more than a month, I think Hanji is more suitable. It is a half-day school like Victoria Kindergarten with class time from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. The other 3 kindergartens are all full-time, and their class time is 8 hours a day, from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Zhang Han's eyes lit up when he heard this. Half-day kindergarten is not so terrible. I can sit outside the school for hours. Which of these are half-day kindergartens? Zhang Han asked. Hanji, Victoria, and many others. There are 13 kindergartens in my records, and these 5 have been selected based on distance, Zif replied. Give me the information and I'll go to investigate them tomorrow, said Zhang Han. Well, all right. Zif handed over the document. Zhang Han took the document and began to look through it. He looked serious. Ziqiang wanted to play chess with Zhang Han, but he gave up on initiating him when he saw that the latter was looking through the records seriously. While Zhang Han was reading and thinking, the room was quiet. Only the sound of Meng Meng playing with her toys could be heard. After 2 or 3 minutes, Zhang Han raised his head, looked at Xian, and asked doubtfully, "Why did you stop talking? We are all waiting for you, the head of the family, to make a decision." Xian blinked as she replied, "Ha ha." Zhang Han shook his head and laughed. "I'm going to investigate them one by one these days before I decide." Since he had decided to let Meng Meng go to school, Zhang Han did not want to regret this. What he needed to do was find a kindergarten where everyone could relax. Okay, let's investigate first. We can't make a hasty decision about it. Xian nodded. Thus, the issue was settled for the time being. Meng Meng's attitude towards kindergarten was more casual. As long as she could play with Papa, she didn't care where she went. After sitting for a while, Ziqiang, Xixiniu, Zif, and Zhang Li returned to the company's hotel to get some rest. At about 10:30 in the evening, Zhang Han and his wife and daughter went back to their bedroom. Zhang Han said a story for about 20 minutes. When Xian and Meng Meng fell asleep, he stopped and lay still for half an hour. After a while, Zhang Han quietly got up, took Meng Meng to her small bed, and covered the mother and daughter with quilts. Then, he quietly opened the bedroom door, closed the door, and stood in the hall. The ring on his finger suddenly shimmered. All of a sudden, the 5-element furnace appeared in the living room and landed on the ground without a sound. The firestone floating under the 5-element furnace began to burn, illuminating the living room. Zhang Han looked at the furnace and began to think. Guarding energy, mini-array. Talisman can also be used. It's important that it is small and convenient. Excessive intimacy must be prevented. 4 layers of protection are required. Zhang Han didn't like strangers cuddling Meng Meng, let alone kissing her. In addition, he should ensure Meng Meng's safety and not let anyone hurt her. Therefore, Zhang Han began to refine something that would play a protective role. The fire burned all night in the living room. Zhang Han's face loomed in the light of the fire. By the time the refining was over, he was actually a little pale. This extremely complex microarray was very mind-consuming. Sometimes, a father's love was as simple as doing something silently for his child. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 strands of black hair about 3 centimeters long flew out of the 5-element furnace. They then floated into Zhang Han's hands. It's done. Zhang Han smiled and waved his hand to call back the 5-element furnace. 2 strands of hair. The first layer was meant to prevent intimacy, and the second layer was supposed to give a warning, if there was spiritual force within 13 inches of Meng Meng. The warning array would be activated immediately. If the strange spiritual force continued to move inward, the energy of the talisman would be activated instantly. This was the third layer of protection, so Zhang Han could sense it immediately. If the talisman was broken, the fourth layer of protection would start working automatically. For Meng Meng's safety, Zhang Han thought of all possible situations and made corresponding plans. After going back to the bedroom with the 2 strands of hair, Zhang Han dropped them forward. The 2 strands of hair flew over to Meng Meng and Xian respectively, sneaked into their hair, and coiled on the back of their heads. Suddenly, two light waves appeared and enveloped the bodies of Meng Meng and Xian before they disappeared rapidly. Zhang Han gently returned to bed and rested. After breakfast, he put on his coat in the bedroom. "I won't go with you?" Xian asked in confusion. "I'm just going to investigate, not to communicate with the school. You don't have to go with me." Zhang Han shook his head slightly. "When will you come back?" "At noon. I'll try to visit all the schools today." After they got out of the bedroom, Zhang Han explained his plan to the others, went downstairs, got in the panda car, and left alone. He went to the nearest school, which was called Boshan International. This school was located in the center of Zikeng district. Zhang Han began driving around its wall after activating his soul sense. He observed that every gate of the school was guarded by several guards, and there were monitoring devices at the gate. However, he still found a blind spot. Zhang Han parked his car on the side of the road, where there were few people. He jumped directly over the fence into the campus and found an area that was neither too big nor too little between 12 buildings. After searching for a long time, he finally found the floor of the kindergarten. There was also security personnel at the front and back doors of the building. Zhang Han went to the side of the building, jumped in from the corridor window on the second floor, and began to observe the environment. There were different teachers in each class whose main purpose was to train the children's abilities, including independent thinking, before they entered primary school. The children in the primary class were more active, while the junior class was a little quieter, and the children in the senior class were very serious. Not this one. This style of education is a bit rigid. Zhang Han watched for a moment and then left. He drove all the way north to Victoria Kindergarten. After observing for a while, he left again in silence. This way, Zhang Han visited 6 kindergartens in the morning. Although they had different styles, their teaching ideas were almost the same, and they all taught 2 literature courses and 3 language courses. So far, Hanji and Victoria were the most suitable for Meng Meng. They were not far from home and had a good decoration style. However, Zhang Han was still not satisfied. On his way back to New Moon Bay, he received a call from Liu Qingfeng. "Zhang Han, I heard that you are choosing a kindergarten these days." "Well, I've just visited some of them, but I think they're all about the same," Zhang Han replied. "I have a suggestion. Have you ever heard of Saint Kindergarten?" Liu Qingfeng said. "Nope. Saint Kindergarten will open in a few days. They only enroll 99 students every year and then divide them into small classes. Among them, 70 students are the best ones that are selected through 3 interviews, while the other 29 places are put up for auction. This year's list was confirmed 6 months ago, but I have a good relationship with the school's board of directors and I can negotiate with them. This school is west of South Island." Liu Qingfeng told Zhang Han everything he knew. After hearing this, Zhang Han said, "I'll go visit the school in the afternoon and then we can discuss it." As soon as he said that, he hung up the phone. After driving for half an hour, he returned to the restaurant at 12 o'clock. After lunch, Zhang Han looked at Zif and asked, "Have you heard of Saint Kindergarten?" "Saint Kindergarten? Yes." Zif's eyes lit up. "It's the top kindergarten in Hong Kong. It is said that all the children of the richest and most influential families go there. However, they stipulate that only 99 students will be admitted every year, and the enrollment starts 6 months in advance. This year's enrollment has ended, and I haven't heard of any extra students getting admitted in the past few years, so I didn't consider it an option. You just reminded me." Xian thought about it and said, "There is only a kindergarten in that school. After graduation, students can easily be admitted to many famous primary schools in Hong Kong. I'll visit it this afternoon." Zhang Han nodded. Meng Meng mumbled, "Papa and I can play at home." Obviously, Zhang Han was very concerned about Meng Meng and wanted to find the best for her. Thus, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Zhang Han went out again. St. Kindergarten was located near Mount Anxing, and there were several residential areas and 2 primary schools west of it. The environment there was elegant, and the location was excellent. Zhang Han drove around the school several times. The school area was not very large. There were 7 or 8 buildings with unique style, including a small Western-style castle, a modern technology house, and an outdoor playground. The surrounding high-quality security guards, who were armed with guns, had been monitoring the whole space. Zhang Han, who was hiding in a tree behind the school, thought for a moment. Then, he jumped from a height of 10 meters and landed on the ground of the campus. He walked a minute forward until he reached the back of the modern house. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him. "Who are you?" An aged man with a white beard was frowning at Zhang Han. Zhang Han was a little surprised. "Late-stage Grandmaster? I'm Zhang Han Yang," Zhang Han replied. "Grandmaster Zhang?" The aged man was surprised but still alert before he showed obeisance. "I'm Luxan." "I see." Zhang Han nodded. "Isn't Luxan the 4th master on the martial artist ranking list of Hong Kong? What is Master Zhang doing here?" The tight muscles of Luxan showed that he was tense. He had heard what had happened before and knew that he could not defeat Grandmaster Zhang. Zhang Han, who knew what Luxan was thinking based on the aged man's expression, smiled and said, "My daughter is going to kindergarten, so I'm here to take a look first." "I see." Luxan immediately relaxed and said with a smile, "This must be a good choice. The children are very smart here. What are you doing here?" Zhang Han looked at Luxan in confusion. A late-stage grandmaster was very influential in the current martial arts world. Under Zhang Han's gaze, Luxan touched his beard, chuckled and calmly replied, "I'm a cleaner." Chapter 464, St. Kindergarten. A cleaner? Zhang Han's lips twitched slightly. What an interesting old cleaner who doesn't care about his strength. It is said that the sweeping monks in a temple are the most powerful. Well, yes. Luxan touched his beard again and said with a smile, "I like to watch children play, and my granddaughter is a teacher here. Since I finished my close-door cultivation 3 years ago, I've been coming here every day." "Oh, I see." Zhang Han finally got it. As they were talking, 6 poker-faced men suddenly ran over to them from the side road. They were very alert and were moving quickly and orderly. However, when Luxan saw them, he waved casually and said, "He is my friend, you can clear the alarm." "Okay." The 6 men retreated in confusion. If he is a friend, how could he still jump this way? The monitoring facilities here are perfect. You were seen as soon as you jumped onto the tree, then? They contacted me when you jumped in. Luxan smiled. "Let me show you around." "Thank you." Zhang Han nodded. This is the science lab and the art creation studio. 2 middle classes are in class now. Let's have a look outside, Luxan said as he led the way. All the buildings had French windows, and Zhang Han could clearly see inside. However, he still activated his soul sense and tried to get more information. Comparatively speaking, the atmosphere of the middle class here was more active than that of the kindergarten he had visited in the morning. They set up the science lab and art creation studio to explore the interests and hobbies of the children, which they call thinking, innovation, or something like that. Anyway, there are many standards and requirements now, so I can't remember them clearly. I didn't have so much trouble when I was a kid. Luxan smiled. The atmosphere is good. Zhang Han looked at the children in the classroom as he spoke. Well, there are many kinds of early childhood scientists, psychologists, doctors, and post-doctors here. It is said that they are very good in the field of early child education. The front building is the teaching building, the junior class on the 1st floor, the middle class on the 2nd floor, and the senior class on the 3rd floor. They are learning languages or something like that there. Zhang Han scanned the building in front with his soul sense and saw that the middle class was learning English on the 2nd floor. The children were singing an English children's song, and their tender voices were echoing in the class, giving off a sense of peace. The houses on the left are for the children, so that they can play with toys and take a nap. The cafeteria on the right provides nutritious lunch. This is the playground, which has slides and a small football field. On the right is the gymnasium with the children's swimming pool and adults' swimming pool. The latter is for the 70 to 80 teachers and staff members working here. That two-story building over there is the main building, and behind it is the parking lot. Although the area is not large, it's well equipped. Luxang curled his lips and added, "It is the best kindergarten in Hong Kong, and the safest." "Is it because of you?" Zhang Han looked at the proud old man. "I'm just a factor. It's mainly because my granddaughter is here, Master Zhang. You don't know how amazing my granddaughter is. I only admire her for taking care of children. Even if the children are crying, she can make them go quiet in a minute," Luxang said triumphantly. Zhang Han didn't know how to reply. However, he understood Luxang. When Meng Meng grew to be a powerful girl, he would be as proud as the old man. "When will the junior class start?" Zhang Han asked. "In 5 days," Luxang replied. "I'll bring my daughter here to have a try then." Zhang Han made a decision. In terms of location, although this kindergarten was not the nearest, it was not far away. From a security-related point of view, there were monitoring facilities without blind spots all around, and Luxang, the fourth master in the martial artist ranking list, was a guard. Thus, no gangster would be able to enter the campus. Moreover, the kindergarten's privacy protection work was comprehensive, and the atmosphere was nice. Zhang Han decided to try this kindergarten. "You should ask someone else for help. I'm useless." Luxang stopped touching his beard and looked around before he said cautiously, "My granddaughter doesn't want me to be a cleaner. If I cause any trouble, she will make me go home." "Ha ha." Zhang Han laughed and shook his head. "I'll get in touch with someone myself. You can enjoy your life as a cleaner." "Woo, I'm relieved then." Luxang smoothed his beard again. "I'll go back now," Zhang Han said before he walked straight towards the front gate. "Would you like to come to my house? I have a farmyard on the back hill," Luxang said courteously. Obviously, he was a friendly person. "Next time." Zhang Han smiled and left through the front gate. The gatekeepers all knew what had happened, so they didn't say anything when they saw Zhang Han, the visitor who had suddenly appeared. When he was back in the car, which was parked on the sidewalk, Zhang Han began to drive back to New Moon Bay. Zhang Han had heard about Luxang's deeds. Although he hadn't appeared in public for many years, people in the martial arts world would still talk about his integrity, kindness, and generosity. The world was too big to breed people with different personalities, such as people who were good, evil, brave, selfish, etc. Although there was a division between good and bad people, in fact, good and bad were just vague definitions. For example, Mahdi of the Heavenly Talisman sect dreamed of being a hero, which was what he pursued. In the same way, Luxang's personality had increased Zhang Han's affection for Saint Kindergarten. Although Meng Meng had some security guarantees, it was better to be safer. "I have decided." Zhang Han went directly to the back of Mount New Moon, sat beside Xian, and spoke up with a smile. "Which one?" Xian asked curiously. "Saint Kindergarten. They start in 5 days," Zhang Han said. "We should contact the school in advance and prepare something before entering the school," Xian said while blinking and thinking. "I just called Chairman Liu. Tomorrow, we will visit Saint Kindergarten with him and discuss this matter with the school." Zhang Han nodded. "Is this school full day or half day?" Xuanhuan asked. "Full day, 8 hours, from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Zhang Han replied. "You have to prepare a lot of things. In addition to school equipment, you will need to bring 2 more pairs of underwear and 2 coats. Children's clothes get soiled easily by urine and food. A few convenience bags will be necessary too." Xuanhuan, who knew something about this, said with a smile, "When Meng Meng goes to school, unless there is a special reason, you should insist on taking her to and from the campus every day." Don't hide and watch her. The mood of a child who has just gone to school is unstable, and her reaction will be more intense when she sees you. Generally speaking, kindergarten teachers are very professional, and children have a strong ability to adapt to a new environment, so you don't have to worry too much. Just communicate with the teacher and get information about Meng Meng in time. Yes, mother-in-law. I see, Mom. Zhang Han and Xian nodded. Meng Meng is lovely, so I believe she won't cry, Ziqiang said confidently with a smile. Xian blinked her big eyes in disbelief. Meng Meng liked to follow Zhang Han so much that it was impossible for her to keep calm when she was separated from her dad. Well, Han? Ziqiang gave Zhang Han a hint. Father-in-law, shall we play Go? Zhang Han asked hesitantly. Let's go. Ziqiang laughed and went to the other side to play Go with Zhang Han. At 5 o'clock, they went back to the restaurant. Then, they had dinner and rested. Before going to bed, Xian said she would take Meng Meng to visit the kindergarten tomorrow. Meng Meng was a little curious when she heard it, but she accepted the arrangement happily. The next day, at 9:30 in the morning, Zhang Han was driving the Panda, following Liu Qingfeng to West Hong Kong. We're going to kindergarten, Mama. Are there many children in kindergarten? Xian and Meng Meng, who were carefully dressed, were chatting in the back seat. They had planned to leave at 9 o'clock, but it had already been 9:30 when they had finished getting dressed. There are a lot of children there, and they are all about your age, Xian said with a smile. How many is a lot? Meng Meng asked. There are about a dozen children in each class, Xian replied. Oh, that's so many. We can play eagle and chicken. The teacher will teach you to play games. Well. Zhang Han coughed softly, looked at Meng Meng through the rear-view mirror, and said, Meng Meng, do you remember what Dad told you in the morning? Yes, of course. Meng Meng put her hand in front of her eyes, pointed to her left hand with her right hand, pouted and spoke seriously. Boys can't hold my hand, hug me, or kiss me. I can hold hands with girls and hug them at most, but I can't kiss them. Right. Zhang Han smiled and said, if that happens, what should you do? Meng Meng made a no gesture and replied in a clear voice, I must refuse. Right. Zhang Han smiled and said, now, suppose that Dad is a little boy and... Zhang Han lowered his voice, pretended to be a little boy, and said, oh, Meng Meng, you are so beautiful, I want to kiss you, I want to kiss you. Ha ha. Xian couldn't help laughing. It was really funny when a serious man acted comically. Meng Meng actively cooperated with her father and seemed to enjoy the game very much. The girl widened her shining eyes, put her hands on her hips, and said angrily, you can't do that. Papa said that nobody can kiss me. Ha ha ha. Zhang Han laughed happily. Xian pursed her lips, pinched Meng Meng's little face gently, and said, do you remember what Mama told you last night? Meng Meng, who was shocked, began to think, what was that? You naughty little girl, you can only remember Papa's words, you don't listen to Mama, do you? Xian reached out with her fingers and pointed to the tiny tip of Meng Meng's nose. It's not like that, Papa keeps talking about it, you just said it once, how can I remember what you said? Meng Meng replied seriously, okay, I'll tell you again. Xian held Meng Meng's hand as she said, use your own cup to drink water outside, and don't share a bottle of water or a set of tableware with others. Eat with your own small plate, don't share cold drinks or ice cream with your little friends, because if someone has a cold or another infectious disease, you may be infected. Don't accept gifts from strangers, especially food, unless Papa and Mama are present, and... Xian began to talk about all the details Meng Meng should pay attention to. As Zhang Han was driving, he listened to their chat and couldn't help smiling. They soon arrived at the front gate of St. Kindergarten. They stopped directly at the roadside, got out, and saw two middle-aged men in suits approaching them. Welcome, Chairman Liu. The two men greeted them. Hello, Mr. Luo, I'm sorry to bother you this time, Liu Qingfeng said with a smile. Mr. Luo was a co-member of the Luo family. The Luo family was one of the top 4 families in Hong Kong, therefore, in terms of status, Mr. Luo's influence was greater than Liu Qingfeng's. However, Mr. Luo was not the patriarch of the Luo family, and thus he was not as influential as Liu Qingfeng. Though Liu Qingfeng was just worth 70 billion yuan, he had a wide range of contacts all over China who provided him with strong support. If Liu Qingfeng wanted to entertain a different friend every day, 1 year would not be enough time for him. Liu Qingfeng made friends thanks to his bold and frank personality, and he was welcomed and respected wherever he went. It's a pleasure to see you, Mr. Zhang and Miss Z. Welcome, I'm very honored to have you here, Mr. Luo said with a warm smile. In fact, he was a little nervous. However, the man in front of him looked approachable. His nickname was Fierce Zhang, and he had destroyed the Li family. Now, almost no family in Hong Kong dared to provoke Fierce Zhang. Still, Mr. Luo thought this was an opportunity for him. He hadn't expected that Mr. Zhang's daughter would apply to enroll at the kindergarten he had founded. This had been a surprise for him. If he could take this opportunity to develop a good relationship with Zhang Han, he would make a great contribution to the Luo family. However, as a smart man, Mr. Luo would not show his intentions immediately on such an occasion. As long as Meng was admitted to his kindergarten, he would have 3 years to form a good relationship with Zhang Han. 3 years was not a short time, so he would get a lot of opportunities to communicate with Zhang Han. What a lovely little girl. What's your name? Mr. Luo looked at Meng and asked in a low voice. Well, my name is Zhang Yumen, but everyone calls me Meng. Meng held Zhang Han's fingers and raised her head to answer. That's so lovely. Mr. Luo smiled, looked at Zhang Han and said, Mr. Zhang, Miss Z. Chairman Liu, please come inside. I have informed the director, we can go there straight away. Okay, Liu Qingfeng replied. Thus, they entered the campus. When they passed the entrance guards, the 2 guards, who were wearing serious expressions, glanced at them from the corner of their eyes. They were astonished to see that the distinguished guest was the man who had jumped into the campus the previous day. Our chairman came to meet him in person. What an amazing man. The road led all the way to the inside of the campus, and there was a 5-story building not far from the right side of the entrance. This was an administrative building, and all the offices of the teachers and managers were in it. They took the elevator and reached the innermost room on the 5th floor. Mr. Luo knocked twice on the door. Come in, please. A man's voice came from inside. When they entered the room, they saw a man in his 30s in a suit, sitting in an office chair. When he saw Mr. Luo, he quickly got up and said, Hello, Mr. Luo, I'm sorry, I've just been dealing with the documents. I often lose track of time when I'm busy. Well, it doesn't matter. Mr. Luo smiled and said, This is Chairman Liu, Miss Z, and Meng. I just told you about this, and now I will take them to go through the enrollment process. Okay, hello, please take a seat first. The principal stood up and made a gesture while saying, The junior class is managed by the deputy principal, who is downstairs. I'll call for him and bring any formalities up. Yes. Mr. Luo nodded. The principal trotted out. Mr. Luo intended to take this opportunity to talk with Zhang Han, so he smiled and said, Mr. Zhang, Miss Z, it's my pleasure that you came here. You can rest assured, our education style and concept are impeccable. As for the teacher, I will arrange the best one for you, I'm sure that. Before he could finish speaking, Xian immediately replied, Mr. Luo, we trust your teachers and education approach, otherwise, we would not have come here uninvited. We have been hearing about St. Kindergarten for a long time. We know that the operation here is very successful, and we also heard that the privacy and protection here are very good. Some people had a flexible mind and could easily understand the implied meaning of other people's words. Mr. Luo thought for a second and smiled, knowing that Xian's mention of privacy at this time was obviously purposeful. I'm not managing this kindergarten for profit, but for better education, Mr. Luo said tentatively. If Meng Meng wants to go to kindergarten, shall I follow the normal steps of class division? Well, okay. Xian smiled slightly. Upon seeing Xian's smile, Mr. Luo was relieved to know that he was right. Of course, he knew that a hypocritical environment was very bad for children's growth. Obviously, Miss Zi had the same concerns and did not intend to let them treat Meng Meng in a special way. Thus, they sat and talked. Meng Meng sat between Zhang Han and Xian and looked at them curiously with her big eyes. Children were curious about new things. Meanwhile, downstairs in the deputy principal's office, the principal knocked on the door and went in. "Old Lu, come with me and bring an enrollment form for this year's junior class," said the principal. "Enrollment form? Didn't enrollment end 6 months ago?" The deputy principal, who was in his early 40s, said in confusion. "Another student came. How can we do that?" The deputy principal was stunned. Without waiting for the principal to finish, he said directly, "For many years, we have only recruited 99 students every year. This rule can't be changed. If other people find out, they will have some thoughts about it." In the face of the serious deputy principal, the principal said in embarrassment, "That kid was brought by Mr. Luo himself. He called me in advance and asked me to do it right away without a charge. Do you understand? If we can't do it, we might as well just quit." "Ah?" The deputy director was startled. "Why didn't you say so earlier? Let's hurry up." "Now, you don't care about the rules?" said the principal with a meaningful smile. "Well, all the rules are formulated by Mr. Luo, so he has the final say." The deputy principal smiled. He took an enrollment form out of the drawer and hurried upstairs with the principal. Chapter 465, Trial Operation of the Bar. "Yes, you have a point." As soon as they entered the room, they saw Zhang Han laughing and talking with Mr. Luo. "Ha ha ha." Luo Shan waved with a smile. "These are also the problems that many parents are worried about, Mr. Zhang. You can rest assured, the teachers here are very professional, and I admire their achievements in this field." It seemed that Luo Shan was in a good mood and thought it was not difficult to communicate with Grandmaster Zhang. "Isn't he very approachable?" Luo Shan thought that he had grasped this opportunity. As long as he could keep Meng Meng here, he would soon become a friend of Master Zhang through frequent contact. "Yes." Zhang Han nodded. Just as the strength of martial artists depended on cultivation, other skills were needed in different fields. The leaders of those fields were also very powerful. Chairman Luo. The principal greeted Luo Shan and then stood by with the deputy principal and waited in silence. Upon seeing them come back, Luo Shan stopped chatting, smiled and said, "Go through the formalities for Mr. Zhang." "Okay, nice to meet you, Mr. Zhang." The deputy principal put a stack of documents on the tea table in front of Zhang Han and said, "On the second page, you will need to fill in the details, contact information, and so on. The remaining pages should be signed at the end." "I see." Zhang Han nodded, took the ballpoint pen, opened the document, and filled it in according to the man's tips. After going through the formalities, Luo Shan said with a smile, "There are 4 days left before the junior class starts. The day before the school starts, the parents will come over to draw lots for class division." At this point, Luo Shan hesitated. However, he thought that they meant to follow the normal rules, so he said, "Usually, parents are required to submit physical examination reports of their children within the last month. That's before the day after tomorrow." "Well, we'll submit it on time," Xian replied with a nod. "There are no other problems. The teacher who leads the class will explain some of the details." "It's still early. Shall I show you around the campus?" asked Luo Shan. "No, I've visited the school before, that's all, Mr. Luo. We will go back now." Zhang Han took Meng Meng's hand and stood up. "Okay, I'll see you off." Luo Shan also got up in a hurry. Zhang Han went to the front gate of the kindergarten, said goodbye, got in the car and left. We will go shopping in the afternoon and make an appointment for a physical examination tomorrow. Nothing will happen the day after tomorrow, so we can play for a day then. Xian was sitting in the back seat, planning their trips in the next few days. Ah, by the way, Mr. Liu just said that international kindergartens generally require students to use English names. Although St. Kindergarten is more casual, I think it's good to use an English name. Will Meng Meng's name at school be Emily? Before Zhang Han could answer the question, Meng Meng, who was stunned, began to object. No, I don't like to be called that name. Why not? Xian asked curiously. I'm not a foreigner, my eyes are black, and my hair is black. They are all black. Meng Meng is not a foreigner, I don't want that name. Meng Meng answered seriously. Ha ha. Upon hearing this, Xian smiled and asked, what name would you like to have? Meng Meng is fine. Meng Meng seemed to be very satisfied with the name Papa had given her. Well, if you want to be called Meng Meng, I'll tell them to call you Meng Meng, Xian said with a smile. Meng Meng waved her hand happily. Meng Meng, Meng Meng. She began singing a song. While they were chatting, the car drove back to New Moon Bay. While Zhang Han took the lead, Liu Qingfing followed their car to eat lunch there. Well, Papa, why don't we go that way? Meng Meng suddenly said as she looked out of the window. We're going somewhere first, Zhang Han replied with a smile. Where is that? Meng Meng asked curiously. Here it is. Zhang Han stopped the car slowly by the side of the road. What is this place, Mingzhengwu? Meng Meng looked at the pinyin on the plaque as she spoke. Swish. Xian looked at Zhang Han with a blush, seeming a little coy. Upon seeing Zhang Han's smile, she couldn't help giving him a wink. Let's go. Zhang Han's palm extended downward and a small packet appeared in his hand. Inside it were various certificates. After getting out, Zhang Han picked up Meng Meng, took Xian's hand, and hurried into the Civil Affairs Bureau. Meanwhile, in the Rolls-Royce Phantom parked on the back side of the road, Liu Qingfing watched this scene and shook his head with a smile. He then sighed. This is really enviable. Xiao Ling, who was sitting in the passenger seat, admired them even more. I hope that one day, I will join hands with Liu Qingfing and get there. It was a pity that Chairman Liu was so concerned about his daughter's feelings that he hadn't given Xiao Ling an answer yet. Besides, she didn't have the time to contact the young madam. After a while, bang, bang, the staff stamped 2 red marriage certificates and handed them to Zhang Han with a smile. Congratulations. Thank you. Zhang Han grinned, took a box of candy and a pack of cigarettes out of his pocket, and put them on the desk of the female employee to show that this was a celebration. Then, Zhang Han took Xian's hand and walked back. Well, Papa, can you show me what that is? Meng Meng said in a hurry when they were back at the car. Here, have a look, this is Mom and Dad's marriage certificate. Zhang Han handed over a small red book. Marriage certificate. Meng Meng seemed to understand. She opened the certificate, looked at it, and then hummed, why is my name not on it? Well. Zhang Han took out the household register and said, that's only for married couples, but you are on this one. This is the household register. Look, this is Dad, and this is Mom. You are on the 3rd page, eldest daughter, Zhang Yuman. There is no picture on this page. Meng Meng mumbled. Xian couldn't help laughing. After they chatted in the car for a while, the car arrived at the restaurant. Ziqiang, Xixiniu, and the others were very happy to know that they had gone to get the marriage certificate. During this period of observation, they had seen Zhang Han's attitude towards his family and were very satisfied with their son-in-law. In the afternoon, the family of 3 went shopping and bought a lot of things to prepare for school. In the evening, Zhang Han cooked many dishes so they could have a small celebration. The next day, Meng Meng didn't eat breakfast because she had to go have the physical examination. Zhang Han had made an appointment at the hospital for a physical examination in advance. The process of the physical examination was a little complicated, and Meng Meng was afraid of the doctor's needle. Her clear big eyes were filled with tears, and she looked very depressed. Zhang Han couldn't bear it, so he covered Meng Meng's eyes and comforted her during the whole process. With the help of her dad, Meng Meng took this step without feeling any pain. On the third day, the family rented a yacht to play and surf. That night, at Meng Meng Security Company, the low 5-story building next to the main building was ablaze with light. There were 2 plaques on the top of the building, while the top one spelled Meng Meng's Recreational Restaurant. The one on the right side of the semicircular glass roof spelled Star Moon Bar, which was the name Zhang Li had given it. A line of advertisements was rolling on the electronic screen on the side of the bar, stating, "During the trial operation, a seat is free of charge." Apart from that, there was no publicity at all about the bar. However, the bar had still become famous in New Moon Bay. It was all because of the plaque of Meng Meng's Recreational Restaurant right above. Now, many people knew the name of Meng Meng's Recreational Restaurant and had visited it. However, in the face of the long queue, most people felt defeated. Why queue up? There were so many people that by the time it was their turn, the food would have already been sold out. What was even more striking was that there were a lot of rich people waiting in line. This made the reputation of the restaurant spread quickly and also attracted a lot of customers for the branch of the restaurant. The Star Moon Bar was next to the restaurant, and passers-by soon discovered the new place. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the bar was open for trial. There were more and more cars in the parking lot in front of the low building. The nighttime order in the bar was maintained by elder brother Long and his men, while Luo King was still a bartender. Zhang Li was the prime-time DJ and worked in shifts with the other 2 DJs. The area on the first floor was very large. Behind the round glass wall on the far right was a hall, and inside was the venue of the bar. The front door of the low building faced only a small square hall, and on both sides was the circular corridor leading to the second floor, which only occupied a small part of the area. It's a huge area, and the decoration is really luxurious. It can accommodate a lot of people. If you become popular enough, you can earn a lot in one night, elder brother Long said enviously. He couldn't even recognize the bar he had once managed, and he didn't have enough men to serve such a large area. Fortunately, the company had hired a lot of waiters for him. Ahu and some other people also planned to come and get some rest in the evening. After all, they were familiar with all kinds of bars. Although their pursuit had changed now, they needed some leisure time during this frequent training. The boss is not short of money, so it doesn't matter how much he earns. Xuanhuan stood beside elder brother Long and watched the people entering the arena. He smiled and said, "This is for Lily, just to make her happy. That's necessary." Day said in a loud voice at the back, "Goddess Li used to play in our bar and have a lot of fun here." Well, Xuanhuan patted elder brother Long on the shoulder and said, "In other words, don't touch any prohibited and controlled things and don't let guests bring them in. We want to make this bar the safest and greenest night spot in Hong Kong." "I see," elder brother Long replied. He had just finished speaking when about 7 or 8 gangsters approached the table at the back. After they sat down, they all began to smoke. As soon as a waiter poured their drinks, one of the bald men took a drink and suddenly vomited before saying in a loud voice, "Bar, you call this wine? What kind of wine did I order? Didn't you hear me? Sir, this is the set meal you just ordered." This is a F-king meal. You're cheating the guests, aren't you?" The bald man dropped his glass on the floor. He stood up and asked several men next to him to surround the waiter. This drew the attention of the other customers. The people around them were a little dazed. How could someone cause trouble when the bar had just opened? Xuanhuan was also in a daze. His mouth was twitching. Why did someone cause trouble just after I finished saying that this is the safest and greenest bar in Hong Kong? Chapter 466, A Small Farce. Xuanhuan led the way to the troublemaker. He walked very fast. Elder brother Long, Day, and the others behind him couldn't catch up with him at their fastest speed. The bald man, who obviously didn't want to calm down, stared at the waiter and was ready to push him aside. Just as his palm was about to touch the waiter's shoulder, all of a sudden, the three men on his side were knocked away. At the same time, the bald man's hand could no longer be extended forward. A hand like iron tongs was grabbing his wrist. The sudden pain changed the bald man's expression. Damn it! The three men who had been hit and pushed aside shouted angrily, signaling at the others to take action. Suddenly, a yellow-haired man asked in surprise, "Are you Xuanhuan, elder brother Xu? Xuanhuan?" The rest of the people in the bar were stunned when they thought of this man. They had all heard that Xuanhuan had once worked for Tang Zan and managed many subordinates for him, but he had resigned 2 months ago and begun to do legitimate business with the crazy and Zhao Feng. A change of sovereign was followed by a change of ministers. Since Xuanhuan had resigned, his former identity would not put too much pressure on this group of people. However, Xuanhuan was still very famous, so they dared not act rashly for the moment. "Are you causing trouble?" Xuanhuan asked, frowning slightly and gazing at the bald man. You let me go." The bald man grinned in pain. Although his wrist was hurting, he was not afraid at all. Xuanhuan realized that they had come here just to cause trouble. Thus, he began to grasp the wrists of the bald man with greater force. "Squat down." Suddenly, they heard a serious voice. The crowd turned around and saw Ahu and the other 8 or 9 men of elder brother Long come in quickly. When they got close to the crowd, the troublemakers suddenly felt afraid of Ahu's ferocious expression and his terrifying chi. They all squatted down as they had been ordered, except for the bald man. "Are you from the underworld? Who is your leader?" Xuanhuan asked again. "My elder brother is Zhang Han, who will arrive soon." "Xuanhuan, I advise you to be careful and let me go." The bald man was sweating, but his tone was still serious. "I see." Xuanhuan let go of the bald man's hand, patted him on the chest, and said sarcastically, "You know who I am, yet you are still very confident. You are really here to cause trouble after all." "Are we causing trouble? It's your own fault," said the bald man while rubbing his wrist. Although he felt a little scared, he knew that his eldest brother was coming soon, so he pretended to be calm and kept answering Xuanhuan. "You don't want to be beaten, do you?" Ahu widened his eyes and got ready to attack the man. "Well, there's nothing to say to such a small minion. Let's go out and meet their elder brother." Xuanhuan patted Ahu on the shoulder and took the initiative to walk out. The bald guy and his men followed him. Outside the building, in front of the front parking lot, 3 black BMW X5s had just stopped. 9 people came out of the cars, led by a thin man with a beard. He was wearing short sleeves and he had tattoos on his arms. After taking a look at the bar, he led his men to that side. "Brother Zan." The bald guy beside Xuanhuan shouted, ready to walk over to the man. "Did I let you move?" Xuanhuan's left hand flashed out and grabbed the bald man's head. "Ah!" The bald man cried out in pain and knelt on the ground. Xuanhuan grabbed his head like a basketball player. Instead of paying more attention to the bald man, he looked at the man approaching him. "Wow! Brother Yang." Zhang Han stopped and said in a loud voice, "Why are you so angry? Is my little brother making you unhappy? If he is, I will punish him." His expression was a little exaggerated, but he was not afraid. He had just said this on purpose. "Don't pretend. Who are you? What do you mean? I don't have time to talk to you." Ahu raised his eyebrows as he spoke. "Who are you shouting at?" All of a sudden, the man standing next to Zhang Han stared at Ahu and touched his back with his right hand. "Mind your words." Zhang Han patted his head and scolded him. Then, Zhang Han looked at Xuanhuan and said with a smile, "Isn't Brother Feng here? Don't talk such nonsense while I'm still patient." Xuanhuan frowned slightly. Zhang Han knew Xuanhuan and Zhao Feng, which showed that he was also a gangster. Xuanhuan didn't know which gang the guy was in and he didn't care about this new generation, which had just made some achievements. However, that didn't mean he was patient enough. "Brother Yang, we heard that you opened a bar here, so we came to congratulate you. After all, Brother Yong and Brother Feng are both predecessors. Brother Yong doesn't seem welcoming though, does he? Zhang Xing narrowed his eyes and shrugged. Yong stared at Zhang Xing, moved his eyebrows slightly, pondered this, and said slowly, "You belong to that bar hundreds of meters away from the street?" Zoom. Zhang Xing was surprised. Yong is a big brother after all, and his mind is really not simple. In the face of Yong, Zhang Xing began to hesitate. He didn't know what to say. However, Yong, who didn't want to waste any more time, said directly, "Whose subordinate are you? It seems that after you left the underground forces, you really didn't pay attention to this field. Now, the underground forces of New Moon Bay belong to Master Pang," Zhang Xing said with a grin. "So he's a subordinate of Guchen?" Yong asked again. "Guchen? That's in the past." Zhang Xing grinned. "What do you mean by that?" Ahu's eyes suddenly widened, and a strong chi came out of him. Zhang Xing's face changed slightly. Guchen was arrested, and the day he came out is long gone. He is done. Now, Master Pang is in control of New Moon Bay, Zhang Xing added. This. Yong frowned. Ahu did the same. Guchen had saved his life, so he was very sad to hear that his benefactor had been arrested. But why didn't he contact me when he was in danger? Both of them began to think about it. They were not interested in arguing with the people in front of them anymore. Upon seeing their different expressions, Zhang Xing gave them a cold smile. Winner took everything, so these people were out of date. Suddenly, buzz! There was a roar of motorcycles, but they saw only one man on a Harley rushing towards them. Zoom! After the driver braked, he jumped down and walked towards the crowd. Pang! Pa! Before Zhang Xing could say anything, he was slapped in the face by the man in the helmet. Ah? Zhang Xing was surprised and stunned, for he didn't know why Master Pang was here. Meanwhile, Ahu, Yong, Brother Long, and the others all turned their gazes to the so-called Master Pang. He was wearing leather, but his chest looked unusually full. Obviously, this was a woman. Under everyone's gazes, Master Pang slowly took off her helmet. Damn it. Ahu's eyes widened. Isn't she Guchen's lover? Only Ahu and Zhaofeng had met Guchen's lover, who was mysterious, once in the gang. Her name was Pang Qingning, and they used to think she was not an ordinary person. Now, they could sense that she was also a martial artist, at least at the peak of peak strength or profound stage. She was not a simple woman. Mind your manner when you talk to Master Pang. A yellow-haired man stared at Ahu. Although Hu ignored the yellow-haired man, Pang Qingning looked at Zhang Xing and said in a cold voice, "What's the matter?" "Well, huh?" She paused and suddenly a dagger fell from one sleeve and landed into her palm. "Now, give me an explanation," she said indifferently, "otherwise, you will lose your tongue." While he watched this scene, Yong's expression changed. Wow, what a fierce yet hot woman. Just as he was about to ask the woman a question, Ahu quickly said something in his ear. Yong's face changed. He let go of the bald man and then looked at Pang Qingning with a complicated expression. "My cousin and I are from the bar next door. We lost a lot of customers when the bar opened. I wanted to discuss with them and ask them to increase the prices." Zhang Xing explained everything in detail. Everyone was amused by his words. However, this was the truth. Interest could blind many people. "You have 3 days to close your cousin's bar." Pang Qingning spoke with curt finality. "Master Pang, why?" Zhang Xing looked depressed. Pang Qingning looked at him unhappily. "Okay." Zhang Xing's face turned pale, but he had no choice but to nod. "I'm sorry, my men are not obedient. They haven't heard of Mr. Zhang and don't know about your stature here. I'm sorry we caused you trouble." Pang Qingning apologized to Yong and Ahu. As soon as this statement was made, Zhang Xing and the others were stunned. Mr. Zhang, their stature? Are they more influential and powerful than Master Pang? They suddenly felt their backs become freezing cold. Since this was a misunderstanding, let it go. Xuanhuan waved his hands. The bald man and the others were relieved. Get the hell out of here. Pan Qingning raised her eyebrows and scolded them. Yes. They ran out in a panic, got in the car, and left. Let's go inside. Xuanhuan waved at Brother Long and his men. After all, everyone had left. Sister Pang, what happened? How could Brother Chen have been arrested? Ahu asked. He was not arrested, it's just. Pan Qingning hesitated before telling them the truth. Therefore, Ahu and Xuanhuan realized what the cause and effect of this matter were. It turned out that there had been several spies from other forces among Gachen's new employees. They had conducted some grey business behind Gachen's back and traded in his name. However, their business was so fragmented that no one knew who they were. Thus, Gachen had made up and directed the play himself. He was worried that there would be chaos in New Moon Bay, so he had asked Pan Qingning to manage these affairs. If it's okay, I'll go back. I'll use this opportunity to punish those boys, Pan Qingning said with a smile. Okay, bye, Xuanhuan and Ahu replied. Pan Qingning nodded her head, put on her helmet, jumped on the black Harley and left quickly. Every woman on a motorcycle should be amazing. Ahu looked at Pan Qingning's back and scratched his head. I don't know when my girl will appear. How could Gachen have fallen in love with a female martial artist? It's so strange. I haven't heard about this. Xuanhuan shook his head and then went back with Ahu. This was the end of this small fuss. Xuanhuan had thought that he would teach the troublemakers a lesson this time, but he had ended up scoring an own goal. Besides, they were very pleased to hear that Gachen had asked Pan Qingning to guard New Moon Bay. There were more and more people in the bar after 9 o'clock in the evening, as they were all attracted by the free seats and cheap drinks. The members of the security group also came to have fun, drink some foreign wine, and have a look at the beautiful girls on the dance floor. They felt as though they were dreaming. Not long ago, they had been serving in the underworld, but now they were separated from that kind of life. The night went by silently. Early the next morning, Ziqi and Zixiniu came to the restaurant. After breakfast, Zhang Han, who was wearing casual clothes, took the princess-style quilt with the cartoon pictures and a blanket he had bought yesterday to the car. Then, he went back to the second floor, looked at Xian, who was sitting in the bedroom, and smiled. It will start at 9 o'clock. It's 8:30 now, so we'll be late if we don't leave immediately. Okay, I'll be done soon, 2 minutes, Xian replied. Meanwhile, Meng, who was sitting on the sofa in the living room on the second floor, said with great dissatisfaction, Papa, Mama, why can't I go with you? I want to go with you. Because only parents can go there today. We will be back before noon. Xian stood up and put on a cap and a pair of decorative eyeglasses, which changed her temperament slightly. Her hip-hop style dress, as well as the fashionable hat and eyeglass frame, made her look very lovely. Meng, play with Grandma and Grandpa at home. Mama will bring you ice cream at noon. Xian touched Meng's head. Huh? Well, I'd like to have strawberry ice cream, Meng said with a pout. Okay. Xian smiled and took Zhang Han's hand. Together, they went out of the door, got in the panda car, and drove to St. Kindergarten. Just before 9 o'clock, they arrived not far from the gate. Upon looking at the cars parked on the street, Zhang Han stopped behind them. He took 2 bags of goods out of the trunk and walked into the kindergarten. The guard pointed to the right side when he saw them, reminding the parents to gather there. There were more than 100 parents waiting in front of the office building on the right. While most of them were well dressed and gorgeous, a few of them looked ordinary. Some of them were from really ordinary families, and some just liked to wear casual clothes. Zhang Han approached the crowd and stopped behind it. These parents were chatting in groups, and many of them were carrying some prepared bedding and other items. While most of them were young parents, there were also a few grandparents. First of all, I'd like to welcome all parents. I will not introduce St. Kindergarten, since you should know all about it. The leading teachers of our 5 junior classes are standing here. After a while, you can start to line up to draw lots. When you draw the number, please go to the corresponding teacher. At 9 o'clock, the principal stood in front of 2 tables and said aloud, "Let's start to draw lots now, parents. We'll divide you into 2 rows so you can draw lots in turns." As soon as the principal finished speaking, the parents divided into 2 rows and began to draw lots. When each of them got a number, they went to find the corresponding teacher and stood in front of them. Finally, the parents who had numbers were divided into 5 rows. Because Zhang Han and Xian had arrived late, they stood at the back. At the end of the drawing process, the principal took a lottery ball and looked at Zhang Han with a smile while saying, "It's number 5, Teacher Lugo, Mr. Zhang, you can go find her." "Okay." Xian nodded. The 2 of them went to the back of line 5. Many people looked back at them, as such good-looking parents were relatively rare. "Okay, everyone is here. Since many of you have brought bedding here, I'll take you to the lunch break building first," Lugo said, holding up her number plate. Then, they went to the lunch break building and stopped at room 105. The area of the building was not small, and the decoration was very exquisite. Since the floor was covered with a carpet, Lugo gave the parents some shoe covers and said, "The beds are randomly assigned, and the name of each child is pasted on the pillar of the small bed. Parents with luggage can just put it on the bed. As for parents without luggage, we will make arrangements in the afternoon." Then, the parents put on shoe covers and went in. "Where is Meng going to sleep?" As soon as she entered the room, Xian began looking around. "There it is." Zhang Han pointed to the small bed in the middle of the 3rd row, which was in front of him. "It's a good place." Xian smiled and walked to the bed. On the right side of the bed was the teacher's desk and chair. Obviously, the teacher could always pay attention to the 3rd row. Some parents were dissatisfied because their children had been placed in the back corner, but they had nothing to complain about. The beds were randomly assigned after all. Zhang Han took out the bedding and blanket, and Xian folded them carefully, put them at the head of the bed, covered them with a tarpaulin, and patted them gently. Then, she looked at Zhang Han and said, "Are my skills good?" "Well, you are really good," Zhang Han said with a smile. "Please follow me to the teaching building." Lugo clapped her hands and led the team out. In the meantime, Zhang Han looked at Lugo. She looked a little like Luxang, and her surname was Lu, so she had to be Luxang's granddaughter. She looked beautiful, lively, and intelligent. "Huh?" Xian said. Zhang Han felt Xian put her hand on his waist and heard her smile and ask, "Who are you looking at?" She hissed. Zhang Han felt a small crisis looming. "Well, I know her grandfather," Zhang Han answered in a low voice. "You already know her grandfather?" Xian said with a smile. "Ah?" Zhang Han was stunned. Upon seeing that no one was paying attention to them, he quietly reached out with his right hand. Slam. He gently hit Xian on the bottom and then said, "If you are naughty again, I will punish you." "Oh, I hate you. So many people are here." Xian twisted her body and rolled her eyes at Zhang Han. "Ha ha." Zhang Han laughed and said, "I encountered her grandfather, who works as a cleaner at the kindergarten, the other day. He is a late-stage grandmaster. We chatted for a while and he told me his granddaughter is a teacher here." The 2 of them chatted quietly in the back. Along the way, Lugo kept introducing the places they passed to the parents like a tour guide. Chapter 467, Let's Go to Kindergarten. They arrived at the teaching building soon. The area of the class was moderate, and the unique desk was a long, white, semicircular table, which was lower than an ordinary desk. In front of the desk were the podium and a whiteboard with an independent frame, which could be written on with a felt-tip marker in order not to produce harmful substances such as chalk dust. A projector, computer speakers, and other pieces of equipment were also available. After all the parents sat down, the curtain of the projector dropped down slowly. Lugo used the remote control to click several times and projected a picture of a QR code. "Dear parents, I'd like to introduce myself to you. My name is Lugo, and I'm the leading teacher of Class 5 for the next 3 years. Lugo put her hands in front of her, smiled, and said politely, "This is my WeChat contact info, please add it into your address book and note the names of yourself and your children. Here is my mobile number, I will inform you of anything in time." Whoosh. All the parents took out their mobile phones and scanned the code to add Lugo's number. Xian took out her mobile phone, scanned the code, and marked herself as Meng Meng's mom. Zhang Han marked himself as Meng Meng's dad, during which period he looked around at the other parents. Apart from Lugo, there were 36 people here. Most of the parents came in person, while many of them seemed to have high social statures. Some of them looked ordinary. In addition, there were some foreign parents. However, no matter who they were, they all remained calm at this time. They listened to Lugo's speech carefully and didn't talk to each other. Obviously, they all cared about their children's education. Let me tell you something that parents should pay attention to. After waiting for 2 minutes, Lugo said again, maybe some babies have never left their parents, which requires their parents to pay special attention. After the children are sent to the school on the first day, they may not be able to accept the arrangement, but we hope that parents can quickly leave their children's sight and trust our profession. We will soon integrate them into the collective life. What's more, don't be too anxious when going to and from school. If there is any conflict between children, parents, please treat it rationally. The teachers will solve these problems and won't make small things big. As for lunch, Ison, the school's restaurant chef, is a world-famous nutritionist, and all the lunches are made with reasonable nutrition. Children will be arranged to have their own meals, but if any parents want to send their meals, please send them to the school gate at noon, and the guard will send them separately. Don't forget to write the name of your children on the lunchbox. As for how to transport students, we hope that every morning and evening, parents can personally transport their children. Don't forget to ask your children what they have learned each day when they leave school. They need encouragement and praise. Lugo told a lot of things to the parents. All the parents listened to Lugo very carefully, just like in a meeting, and even some parents took out their own notebooks to write down what the teacher said. Finally, some parents put forward their concerns, and Lugo answered them one by one. When it was about 10:20 in the morning, Lugo clapped her hands and said with a smile, "Let's go to the studio of the office building to attend this year's entrance ceremony." The parents got up and followed Lugo to the main building. The parents walked into the studio one by one. There were a total of 100 students, including Meng Meng, so there were nearly 200 parents. After the parents sat down, the principal and the deputy principal walked to the row of tables on the rostrum. All those in the administration had their own names at their desks, of which 70% were Chinese, 30% were foreigners, 70% were women, 30% were men, 70% were young people under 30, and 30% were middle-aged people between 30 and 50. There were more than 20 people sitting on the rostrum. After the parents arrived, at 10:30 a.m., the head principal stood up with a microphone and said, "First of all, welcome, parents. I'm Zhang, the principal of the kindergarten. St. Kindergarten was founded in 2003 at a cost of 2 billion yuan, and we have nearly 100 experts, doctors, and other excellent employees in the field of child education. Our purpose is not to make profit, but to give children get an all-round development." Zhang also knew something about this because he used to be Liu Shan's subordinate. The 2 billion yuan that was used to set up St. Kindergarten was almost all the property of Liu Shan, and his purpose was to develop his own network. Over the years, Liu Shan's network had spread all over Hong Kong, and he had become one of the core members of the Liu family. After 3 minutes of opening remarks, Zhang began to introduce others. "Let's welcome Professor Li to make a speech." Sitting next to him, a woman in a suit, about 40, stood up, turned on the projector, and began to introduce. As we all know, children's learning ability is very strong and teachers' education is very important. But what is even more important is parents' cooperation, because before the age of 7, children's character will be shaped. So during this period of time, Professor Lee talked for about 5 minutes, introduced some very professional knowledge, and then it was another person's turn to speak. After all the speeches, it was 11:30 in the morning, and the parents left one after another. Meng is going to school tomorrow. I'm a little nervous. If she cries, what should we do? After getting in the car, Xian pursed her lips and asked anxiously, let's wait and see. Zhang Han sighed. The two talked all the way. Meng was going to school, and their feelings were very complicated, especially Xian's. She felt that in a flash of time, Meng would go to kindergarten. Then she would go to primary school, middle school, university, and grow up. Sometimes, she wanted Meng to grow up quickly, but sometimes she wanted Meng to be a carefree princess all the time. Her feelings were a bit ambivalent. Zhang Han also thought so. Meng had been following him every day since she returned home from abroad. Once he couldn't see Meng at home in the daytime, he would miss her. The next day, after breakfast, Meng started singing happily. Her mood could be read from her small face. Going to kindergarten made her feel happy, but now she didn't realize that there were no Papa and Mama there. Well, do you like it? Xian tied Meng's hair into 2 small plaits, and dressed her in short sleeves, a white coat, blue jeans, and small white sneakers. Papa, isn't that my school bag? Why are you carrying it on your back? Meng blinked her big eyes and asked. Because the bag is a little heavy, Zhang Han said with a smile. But Meng wants to carry it herself, said Meng unhappily. Let her carry it on her own, Xian said with a smile. Oh, just wait a while. Zhang Han ran into the second bedroom with the school bag. There were water cups, a change of clothes, and all kinds of stationery in the bag. The total weight was heavy for Meng. But Zhang Han could solve this problem. About 3 minutes later, Zhang Han came out with the bag and handed it to Xian. Xian took the bag, estimated the weight, and smiled at Zhang Han. You are cheating again. Now the bag seemed to be empty. Let's put the bag on your back, Xian said with a smile. Put the bag on Meng's back, stretched out her hand, and scraped Meng's little face. She laughed and said, take 2 steps forward and show your bag to Papa and Mama. Wow! Meng is so beautiful today. Meng is going to school and growing up to be a girl. Really? Am I beautiful? Meng is going to school, and I am not a kid anymore. Meng giggled. Let's take a picture to commemorate this day. Xian took out her cell phone and said to Meng. Ha ha ha. Meng held her waist with her left hand, bulged her cheeks out, and pointed her right index finger at her face, which made her look very cute. Well, it's done. Xian looked at the photo, smiled, and was about to take back her mobile phone. Oh, wait a minute, I'll take a picture with Papa, said Meng in a hurry. I'm coming. Zhang Han walked over to Meng with a smile. Papa, let's pretend to be tigers, like this. Whoa, 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 whoa. Meng stretched out her small hands, put them on both sides of her face, and made the action of waving her claws. At the same time, she opened her mouth like a cute little tiger trying to bite. Papa, copy me and do this. Meng paused and urged Zhang Han. Okay, okay. Zhang Han nodded, stretched out his hands, and pretended to be a little tiger. Xian took a glance at him, and couldn't help laughing. Crack. A funny picture was left on the phone. Xian looked at them again and giggled. She was laughing at Zhang Han, although his expression and action looked silly. Meng was beside him and made him look lovely. Let's go to school. Xian put away her mobile phone and said with a smile. Whoa, let's go to kindergarten. Meng waved her arms. It was nearly 8 o'clock in the morning, and there were many diners downstairs. After seeing the family of 3, most of the diners said hello with a smile. Under everyone's envious gaze, the family of 3 got in the lovely panda car and left the restaurant. Brother Feng, is Meng Meng going to school? Sun Donging was surprised and hurried to ask them. Yes, she goes to kindergarten today, Zhao Feng replied. Oh, when I come to have lunch at noon, I can't see Meng Meng, Sun Donging said in disappointment. Sometimes after lunch, if Meng Meng was on the first floor, he would occasionally record a small video of her from far away to meet the requirements of his fans. A lot of people were attracted by the short videos made by Meng Meng's fan group and wanted to apply to be her fans. It was them who begged Sun Donging to record more videos every day. Sun Donging always sighed that Meng Meng could attract numerous fans merely with her face, and he wondered why he wasn't born with a handsome face. After driving for nearly half an hour, they arrived at Saint Kindergarten. The entrance of the kindergarten was very busy, and there were luxury cars everywhere. Zhang Han also saw some cars worth merely hundreds of thousands, like an Audi A6L, Chevrolet, and so on. But their panda car was the most unique. Zhang Han found it very crowded in front, and stopped at the back of the street. Those in front are the media, aren't they? Why are many people here? Xian looked at the crowd at the school entrance and said, there were a lot of parents and a dozen reporters from the media on the street. At this time every year, the major media outlets would report the news of the opening of Saint Kindergarten as well as other famous schools. At the same time, they wanted to see if there were any big shots children coming to school today. After all, some adults like to compare the children's family backgrounds with each other. Chapter 468, Indirect Guidance. Shall we get out and walk over there? Zhang Han parked the car and asked. Let's go, let's go. Meng Meng stretched out her small hand and cheered. Xian hesitated and said, even though I'm dressed up, if I'm photographed, I'll still be discovered. Then the restaurant will always be disturbed by paparazzi. Maybe you can wait for us in the car? Zhang Han said. Okay, I'll stay in the car. Xian thought about it and made a decision. Picking up the bag from the back seat, she said, Meng Meng, let's put the school bag on you. You are going to school and growing up to be a girl. Remember to follow the teacher's guidance. Well, I see, Mama, we're going to school. Meng Meng said happily. Meng Meng was looking forward to life in kindergarten, but she didn't realize that she would be left on the campus alone. Give Mama a kiss. Xian approached Meng Meng. Mwah. Meng Meng kissed Xian. Let's got out of the car. Zhang Han smiled, got out first, went to the back seat, opened the door, and took Meng Meng out of the car. Meng Meng, come on. Xian lowered the car window halfway, put her head through, and said with a smile, ha ha. Meng Meng made a heart-shaped gesture to Xian and said, bye, Mama, Papa and I are going to school, wait for us here. After that, she took Papa's hand and walked to the entrance of kindergarten. Xian pursed her lips and looked at the back of the father and daughter. She was still a little worried, but she felt something was wrong. What did Meng Meng just say? Meng Meng and Zhang Han went to the school entrance with a bag that was full of objects but was still light. There were many people coming and going at the entrance, and they saw many children standing in a small square not far away. Welcome, please go there to find your own class. The 2 female teachers standing at the door greeted Zhang Han, Meng Meng, and the family behind them warmly. What a beautiful girl. Another female teacher looked at Meng Meng and smiled. Nice to meet you, I'm Meng Meng. Meng Meng was a little shy, she hid behind Zhang Han and said hello in a low voice. Nice to meet you, cute girl, go and find your teacher. The ponytail teacher smiled and waved to her, so Zhang Han took Meng Meng's little hand and prepared to go inside. The father and son behind them were just led to the small square on the inside with normal, polite words. Only 2 female teachers had to receive nearly 100 families and children. so it was impossible for them to say more than a few words to everyone. As soon as Meng Meng entered the kindergarten, she started to look left and right curiously. She looked very happy. "Papa, there are so many children here, it's so fun." Meng Meng looked up and said, "Well, I'm glad you can say that, then you and other children will play games together." "What game are we going to play? Is it eagle and chicken?" "Well, I don't know, some interesting games probably." Zhang Han smiled and replied. Zhang Han was worried that Meng Meng would cry because he had seen a few children crying in the crowd not far away. Xian looked up a lot of information last night, and talked with Miss Legault for a while. After Meng Meng went to bed, Xian and Zhang Han exchanged all the knowledge they received. However, Meng Meng's performance today made them feel that they might be too worried. When they approached the crowd, Meng Meng blinked her big eyes, looked left and right, and was startled. "Ah, Papa, why are those little brothers and sisters crying?" Meng Meng reached out her hand and pointed to the crying children behind her. This. Zhang Han thought of Teacher Legault's reminder, so he put on an exaggerated smile, touched his daughter's small head, and praised her, because they are not as good as Meng Meng. Of course, Meng Meng is the best. The little girl nodded seriously. "Teacher Lu." When he got to the teacher, Zhang Han said hello first. "Hello, this beautiful girl is Meng Meng, isn't she?" Lu Go looked at Meng Meng and connected her with the picture of a lovely little girl in the student file. Generally speaking, although the teachers would read students' relevant information before they entered school, few students could be remembered by their teachers. Only the students with more characteristics could be remembered by the teacher. For example, Lu Go remembered Martin, the little black boy standing in the back of the classroom. Although there were many foreign children, the black boy was unique, which enabled him to stand out from the rest. Lu Go also remembered that the little boy with golden hair and blue pupils was Stephen. As for Meng Meng, she was remembered by the teacher because she was so beautiful. Hearing Lu Go's words, Meng Meng blinked shyly. Before she greeted Lu Go, Zhang Han said, "Meng Meng, she is your teacher from now on, so you should call her Teacher Lu." "Hello, Teacher Lu." Meng Meng waved her hand and said, "Hello." Lu Go smiled and said, "This row has all the students of our class, who are also your classmates. You can stand here." Meng Meng looked at the children in front of her with her big eyes, and these children were looking at Meng Meng as well. However, the three crying children in the back soon attracted Meng Meng's attention because two teachers at the same age as Lu Go were coaxing them. "Miss Lu, I leave Meng Meng to you, please take good care of her." Looking at Lu Go, Zhang Han said worriedly, "There is a bottle of water in her bag for her to drink in the morning, as well as several clothes to change into. Besides, Meng Meng's face is very sensitive." "Don't worry, Meng Meng's dad, we will take good care of Meng Meng. If there is anything you need to know, I will inform you in time," Lu Go said with a smile. "Okay." Zhang Han nodded, looked at Meng Meng, touched her little head, and was about to say something. Meng Meng felt that something was different from her imagination. Why didn't their papa and mama come? Meng Meng asked Zhang Han. Lu Go said with a smile, "Because there are no parents in kindergarten, it's the place for children to study. No papa and mama?" Meng Meng looked at Zhang Han nervously and uneasily. "Papa, we are going to play together in kindergarten." "No, not us, it's Meng Meng who needs to stay in kindergarten, and Dad will come back later. In the evening, I will come to pick up Meng Meng." Zhang Han lowered his voice. "Ah? Why does Papa come to pick me up at night? I don't want to stay alone, I want to stay with Papa. Papa, I won't allow you to leave." Meng Meng was about to cry. Terrible. Lu Go's heart skipped a beat. She is going to cry. So she quickly squatted down and whispered in front of Meng Meng, "Look, there are many children here, and they want to play with toys and games with you. You see, they are not crying, so Meng Meng should not cry. Meng Meng is a good girl." As Lu Go spoke to her, she winked at Zhang Han. You'd better leave her as soon as possible." After 2 seconds of silence, Zhang Han touched Meng Meng's head and said softly, "Meng Meng, Dad is going back to make lunch and bring it to you. I'll surely pick you up on time in the evening. When you leave school, Dad will be waiting for you at the entrance." After he finished speaking, Zhang Han turned and was about to walk out. 1 step, 2 steps. When Zhang Han took the 3rd step, Meng Meng cried out as if she had been wronged. "Papa can't go. I won't let you go. Papa, you come back." Meng Meng stretched out her little arm and wanted to run to Zhang Han, but Lugo gently stopped Meng Meng with a hug and began comforting her in a low voice. But it was no use comforting Meng Meng. Her voice was even louder than that of the children behind her, which made them stop crying immediately. They all looked at Meng Meng curiously. Why is she crying so loudly? There were even some parents who took a glance at Meng Meng and shook their heads slightly. They felt that the little girl was a little too coquettish, or her parents did not educate her well. Their children had been well prepared and didn't cry at all today. They were sure to become elites in the future. How can she cry like that? Some parents shook their heads when they saw Meng Meng. In fact, Meng Meng's behavior was understandable. Maybe they were well prepared to educate their children, but they didn't know that Meng Meng hadn't seen her father for several years, and her expectations of her father were unimaginable. After finding Zhang Han, Meng Meng depended on him more than they thought. When Xian went to work, Meng Meng wouldn't feel very sad, but as long as Zhang Han was not around her, she would start to worry about the disappearance of Papa. Zhang Han was depressed now. He was distressed. He forced himself not to turn back and strode out of the front entrance of the kindergarten. When he felt that he was far enough away from Meng Meng, he turned his head and looked at Meng Meng in the distance. "Papa, don't you want Meng Meng? Papa, come back." Meng Meng stretched out her little arms, crying, out of breath. Seeing her expression, Zhang Han stopped. When the door of the kindergarten was about to be closed, whoosh, Zhang Han ran back quickly. "Wait a minute." Zhang Han pushed the door open, ran quickly to Meng Meng, held her in his arms, touched her head, and said softly, "Dad won't go, Dad won't leave you, Dad is back, don't cry." Under Zhang Han's comfort, Meng Meng was still crying, and her little arms were tightly around Zhang Han's neck. "This." Lugo sighed. "I'm sorry, Teacher Lu, we are not ready. I'll take her home," Zhang Han said apologetically. "It's fine." Lugo smiled and said, "But didn't you make it clear to Meng Meng?" "Well, the preparation in advance should be done well, otherwise, children can't accept it for a while." "Yes, it's our fault." Zhang Han nodded his head. "Go back first, in the afternoon or tomorrow. Come back when you are ready," Lugo said. "Okay." Zhang Han nodded his head lightly and left with Meng Meng in his arms. Lugo looked at the back of the father and daughter, shook her head helplessly, and then walked inside with the other 2 teachers and children. Meng Meng knew that Papa was going to take her home, so she gradually stopped crying. "Well, Meng Meng, stop crying. Dad promises you, if you don't want to go to kindergarten, we won't go there, okay?" Zhang Han said softly. "Okay," said Meng Meng with a choked-up voice. She still put her little arms around Zhang Han's neck tightly and put her head on them. Her tears wetted Zhang Han's neck. This made Zhang Han very distressed. When the media reporters at the entrance saw that a child was being carried out, they took 2 pictures specially, and then finished their work and prepared to go back. In the back seat of the panda car, Xian blinked and looked out of the window. Because of her nervousness, she grasped the front seat with some force. Then she was stunned. Seeing Zhang Han carrying Meng Meng back, she moved her lips slightly. She didn't know whether to feel happy or angry. I should have guessed that he would be reluctant to see Meng Meng cry. Xian's eyes were fixed on Meng Meng. She quickly opened the door, got out of the car, and took a few steps forward. Hearing Meng Meng's sobs, Xian bit her lips and stretched out her hands. "Come here, give Mom a hug. Let's get in the car first." Zhang Han went to the back seat with Xian. Seeing poor Meng Meng, Xian was really distressed. She quickly held Meng Meng in her arms and took out a tissue to dry her tears. At the same time, she whispered, "Don't cry, Meng Meng. Mama, I don't want to go to kindergarten." Meng Meng pursed her lips and said pitifully, "Why not? There are many children there," said Xian. "But there is no Papa. I want to be with Papa." "Yes, with Dad." "Don't cry, baby, Dad will be always with you." Zhang Han touched Meng Meng's head. After a few minutes of coaxing, Meng Meng stopped crying. Xian sighed, touched Meng Meng's little face, and said, "Going to kindergarten doesn't mean being separated from Papa. Papa will take you back home every afternoon. You just need to stay at kindergarten during the day and study and play with your classmates. You'll still be with Papa and Mama in the afternoon and evening." Meng Meng was slightly shocked. After thinking for 2 seconds, she pouted and said, "No, I want to be with Papa." "That's okay, or I'll work in the kindergarten as—" Zhang Han looked at Xian hesitantly and said. Before he could finish speaking, Xian rolled her eyes at him and stopped him. "What are you doing in the back seat? Come and drive the car. Let's go back first, and then discuss it," said Xian. "Okay." Zhang Han grinned, opened the door, started the car, and then drove back to New Moon Bay. "Meng Meng, do you not want to go to kindergarten because you want to be with Papa?" Xian asked Meng Meng in her arms. At this time, Meng Meng's mood had changed from a heavy rain to a sunny day. Hearing Xian's words, she nodded seriously. "Yes, I want to be with Papa." Then the little girl thought about it and added, "We should go to kindergarten together." Xian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Papa and Mama are not allowed in kindergarten. Do you want Papa to be happy?" Xian asked again. "Yes." Meng Meng replied without hesitation. "If you get the teacher's praise in kindergarten, Papa will be very happy when he hears it. If you want Papa to be happy, you should go to kindergarten and get the teacher's praise." Xian started to encourage Meng Meng. But Meng Meng hesitated. "I don't want to leave Papa and Mama. Can I get praise from the teacher without going to kindergarten? In this way, I can be with Papa and make Papa happy." Zhang Han was happy to hear that. "What a considerate daughter I have." Hearing Meng Meng's words, Xian felt helpless. She failed to persuade Meng Meng on the way back home. When they returned to the restaurant, Ziqiang was stunned when he saw the whole family coming back. "Oh, my granddaughter is back? Is school over?" Ziqiang asked in confusion. "Yes, it's over, and I'll never go there," Meng Meng replied seriously. Xian was amused and shook her head again. It seemed to be so difficult to persuade the little princess. At this moment, ding! Xian's cell phone rang. When she took it out, her eyes lit up as she quickly answered the phone. "Hello, Suyu, what's that? Okay, fine, we are available today. Why not go to our restaurant? It doesn't matter at all. I have something to consult you about. Come here at night, and I'll have Zhang Han make some delicacies." "Okay, that's it." After hanging up, Xian smiled at Meng Meng and said, "Meng Meng, today is your friend Yihan's birthday. She wanted to invite us out for a get-together, and Mom invited them to come over at night. Are you happy?" "Yihan's birthday, that's great. I'll sing her a birthday song in the evening." Meng Meng's big eyes suddenly lit up. Seeing her expression, Xian smiled. Zhang Han was confused. "Why are you so happy?" Zhang Han asked. "Well." Xian approached Zhang Han's ear and said something. Zhang Han was suddenly enlightened. It turned out that Xian wanted to indirectly guide Meng Meng. Wang Yihan had been in kindergarten for nearly a year and had some experience. Xian hoped to let her guide Meng Meng to be interested in kindergarten. Therefore, the whole day passed quietly while Xian and Meng Meng waited. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Wang Jian, who was carrying 4 bottles of high-grade liquor, and Suyu, who was carrying a 2-layer cake, led the happy Wang Yihan into the restaurant. Originally, Wang Juin wanted to bring 2 bottles of red wine, but when he thought of the fine wines that Liu Qingfeng sent to the restaurant as gifts, he gave up on the plan of sending red wine, and then tried to order 4 bottles of high-end Mao Tai. Zhao Feng welcomed the 3 of them to the 2nd floor. Meng Meng, Meng Meng, Meng Meng, I'm coming. Wang Yihan jumped toward Meng Meng. Yihan. Meng Meng, sitting on the sofa, hurried down, took the gift box from her side, and ran up to the girl. Yihan, happy birthday to you. Wow, a gift for me, thank you, Meng Meng, you are so nice. Wang Yihan took the gift in surprise. Don't be so courteous. Meng Meng replied while giggling. Happy birthday to you, Zhang Han and Ziyan said. Thank you, Uncle Zhang and Aunt Zhang, Wang Yihan replied happily. I wanted to invite you out to play, but in the end, we came to disturb you again. I'm a little embarrassed, Wang Juin said with a smile. It's nothing, don't be so courteous. Zhang Han nodded with a smile. He had been worrying about how to persuade Meng Meng to go to kindergarten, and now he came up with an idea. Sometimes, it was hard for parents but easy for friends to guide a girl. But whether it would work or not depended on the effect tonight. Chapter 469, It's Not Easy. Ziqiang, Xuanhuan, Zif, and Zhang Han's family were now on the 2nd floor. Zhang Li was now busy at night, and she went to the Star Moon bar after supper. Zhang Li felt comfortable staying at the bar. Yes, it was really comfortable. The bar's equipment was of the world's top quality, making the bar at least among the top 3 in Hong Kong. The seats, aisles, dance floors, etc., were all specially designed by the professors invited by Liu Qingfeng. If someone still felt uncomfortable there, it meant that they didn't like bars at all. Zhang Li was more looking forward to the opening of the open-air DJ Plaza, but there were still not enough customers to support her plan. Although the bar was becoming more and more famous, it was only half full every night. Zhang Han didn't know much about Jing, but he also had some ideas. He made a special inquiry and found that Alan Walker didn't appear. But Zhang Han was busy looking for a kindergarten for Meng Meng recently, so he had no time to do anything else. After Ziqiang and Xuanhuan greeted the guests, Zhang Han nodded and said, let's chat while enjoying dinner. So they sat down at the table, on which there were already many plates. There were roast pig's hooves, cold okra, shredded potatoes with red oil, roast duck, and so on. But each dish was covered with another deep plate to prevent it from getting cold. Zhang Han took off the plate, and the fragrance began to fill the room. Wow, there are so many dishes. I like pig's hooves, chicken legs, and chicken wings the best, thank you, Uncle Zhang. Wang Yihan's eyes lit up as she thanked Zhang Han with a smile. Eat more if you like, Zhang Han said with a smile. He was easygoing like a kind uncle next door. Oh, we should eat later. Let's turn off the lights first, light the candles, sing birthday songs, blow out the candles, and make wishes. Meng Meng pouted her mouth and said, well, let's put in the candles first, Ziyan said with a smile. Then, Meng Meng took Wang Yihan's hand and ran to the tea table. Other adults also stood up and walked toward them. Wang Juin quickly opened the cake box and put 5 candles in the cake. Turn off the lights, Meng Meng said eagerly after seeing the candles lit. She was very happy, as if it was her own birthday. Ziqiang went to one side and turned off the lights. All of a sudden, the lights in the restaurant dimmed. However, those 12 night-luminescent pearls on the 1st floor began to shine softly. This soft light did not affect the light of the candles, but added a more dreamlike beauty to it. Wang Juin's mouth twitched slightly when he saw the pearls. Okay, it's amazing. They are using the night-luminescent pearls as light bulbs. He exchanged a look with Suyu. They all knew the value of the night-luminescent pearls, and were astonished at Zhang Han's wealth and stature. They would be startled if they knew that there were thousands of night-luminescent pearls on Mount New Moon. Originally, Wang Juin was deeply stressed by the disparity in status, and even the number of times he came to the restaurant decreased dramatically. However, with further contact with the family, he found that Zhang Han and Xian had always treated them the same way, which made Wang Juin feel that the real big shots might not be arrogant. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. When Wang Yihan was making her wish, Meng Meng began singing happily. Meng Meng clapped and sang. Her standard pronunciation and tender voice made everyone feel comfortable. Puff. Wang Yihan opened her eyes and blew out the candles. Happy birthday. Everyone congratulated her with a smile. Wang Yihan was so happy that she scratched her head shyly and said, "Thank you, Meng Meng, Uncle Zhang and Aunt Zi." The fat little girl thanked everyone here. Ziqian shook his head with a smile and said, "Let's have dinner first." "Wait, we haven't cut the cake yet," Meng Meng mumbled. Wang Juin cut a piece of cake for each of the two little girls, and then they went back to the table again. After eating for more than 10 minutes, Suya looked at Xian and said with a smile, "You said that Meng Meng also went to kindergarten?" "Yes, she went and came back." Xian shook her head helplessly. "She doesn't want to leave you?" Suyu smiled and said, "It's difficult in the beginning, but then she will adapt to the new environment." They began talking about kindergarten. After dinner, the two little girls ran to one side to play with toys. When Wang Juin went to the bathroom, Suyu followed him. After sitting back, Wang Juin looked at Zhang Han and said, "Mr. Zhang, if you think it's hard for Meng Meng to go to kindergarten, Yihan could accompany her for a few days. If Meng Meng has friends, she won't resist your plan. It's really a good way." Zhang Han nodded and said, "Is it convenient for you? Isn't Wang Yihan also in school? She is now in the middle class of Boshan kindergarten. She didn't learn much in school, and Suyu could teach her if she missed some lessons. Taking this opportunity, we want Yihan to experience the education style of Meng Meng's kindergarten." Wang Juin smiled and shook his head. "We intended to send Yihan to Saint Kindergarten the year before last, but she was naughty and her English wasn't good, and she failed the third interview round." Zhang Han took a glance at Wang Juin and Suyu, and then said, "Shall I contact someone and send Yihan to Saint Kindergarten?" This. Wang Juin was surprised and wanted to say yes. Going to Saint Kindergarten meant that Yihan could select any primary school she liked after graduation, so it was a perfect chance for her. However, they would owe Zhang Han a lot if they accepted his help. But for Wang Yihan's future development, Wang Juin wanted to promise Zhang Han. He was a little uncertain, so he turned to look at Suyu. Will it be very troublesome?" Suyu looked at Zhang Han and asked hesitantly. She hesitated because of embarrassment. "It's no trouble at all." Zhang Han gently smiled and shook his head. Zhang Han, Xian, Wang Juin, and Suyu had similar thoughts. After 2 minutes of discussion, the matter was settled. "I'll call and ask them." Zhang Han smiled and went to the second bedroom, where he found Liu Shan's number in the address book and called him. Doot, doot, doot. On the third ring, the phone was connected, and Zhang Han immediately heard Liu Shan's warm voice. "Good evening, Mr. Zhang. I heard that Meng Meng's mood was out of control in the morning. Is there any problem?" There was a little uneasiness in his enthusiastic tone, but what Zhang Han said next made him feel relieved, even a little overjoyed. "There are some problems. My daughter likes to follow me." Zhang Han grinned, feeling happy because of Meng Meng's love. "Meng Meng has a good friend here. She is over 4 years old and is now studying in Boshan kindergarten. I want her to go to the kindergarten with Meng Meng, and I wonder if it is convenient for Mr. Liu." "Oh, it's fine. It's convenient for me. Of course, the kindergarten is built to educate children, and we welcome every child." Liu Shan laughed and then continued, "Mr. Zhang, send me the student's name and her parents' information. I'll have her go through the formalities now and come to school normally tomorrow." "Well, thank you very much, Mr. Liu. Don't be so courteous, Mr. Zhang." After chatting for a few words, Zhang Han hung up the phone. He could feel the happiness in Liu Shan's tone. The process of helping others was also the process of accumulating intangible wealth for oneself. In this way, Luo Shan succeeded in becoming a core member of the Luo family. Obviously, as long as he could help Zhang Han, Luo Shan would do anything except tear down the kindergarten. As for Zhang Han, he would do anything for Meng Meng. Zhang Han left the bedroom. Just write down Wang Yihan's and your information and send them to this number. She can go to school directly tomorrow. Zhang Han handed over his mobile phone. Okay, thank you. I'm a little embarrassed. Wang Jian smiled, took Zhang Han's cell phone, and found he was going to send the information to Luo Shan, the chairman of Saint Kindergarten. With just a phone call, Zhang Han could send Yihan to Saint Kindergarten, and she can go to school tomorrow. How amazing Mr. Zhang is! Wang Jian was shocked, and then he sent a message containing Wang Yihan's information along with his and Suyu's names. Within a second, Luo Shan replied, received. The efficiency surprised Wang Jian. Meanwhile, the voices of the two little girls on the sofa grew louder. Wow, I like this gift so much. I love you, Meng Meng. Wang Yihan was about to kiss Meng Meng on the cheek, but, I think I've got an electric shock. Meng Meng, can you generate electricity? Wang Yihan looked at Meng Meng in surprise. What do you mean? Meng Meng was stunned, not knowing what Yihan meant. Just then, Meng Meng, Yihan, come here. Xian smiled and waved to the two little girls. We're coming. Meng Meng jumped off the sofa and ran to her mother. Wang Yihan followed her. Yihan, I heard that you have been in kindergarten for a long time. Is it fun there? Xian asked. It's fun. There are lots of children in kindergarten. The teachers take us to play games, and we also have little red flowers. Only good children can be rewarded with little red flowers, and they will get Dad's praise. The teacher also takes us out for spring outings, picnics, and many more things, Wang Yihan replied. Hearing her words, Meng Meng was more and more curious about kindergarten. Meng Meng, do you want to go to kindergarten and play with other children? Xian looked at Meng Meng and asked. I don't want to. Meng Meng pouted and said, I want to be with Papa. Oh, Meng Meng, it's fun in kindergarten. You can play in kindergarten during the day and go home at night, Wang Yihan said. But I want Papa to go to kindergarten with me. Meng Meng said unhappily, Papa is not allowed in kindergarten. There are only 5 days of classes per week in kindergarten. You can stay at home on weekends. Every day after school, Mom and Dad will pick you up, Wang Yihan said. She had completely forgotten about how she cried on the first day of kindergarten. 5 days. Meng Meng lowered her head slightly, looked at her fingers, and calculated the time. The chance is coming. Xian added in a hurry. The kindergarten classes are from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., only 8 hours in total, and the happy time will pass quickly. Meng Meng, if you get a little red flower, Papa and Mama will be very happy. But I don't want Papa to leave Meng Meng. How could Dad leave you? Zhang Han smiled softly and said, Dad has been guarding you. I will take you to school in the morning, pick you up in the afternoon, and make lunch for you at noon. But Meng Meng pouted, showing a sad expression. Before she finished, Xian hurriedly said, how about going to school with Yihan? Meng Meng suddenly froze, her attention attracted. Meng Meng and I go to school together? That's great. Meng Meng, let's play together. Your English is so good, and you will surely get a lot of little red flowers, Wang Yihan said happily. But she didn't know that she was going to go to another school with Meng Meng. She thought it was Meng Meng who would be going to her own school. Wang Jian was not worried about this because several classmates who had a good relationship with Yihan lived in the same community as her. When they were not in school, they could still play together. Therefore, even if Yihan changed schools, she could communicate with her friends when she went back at night. What is a little red flower? Meng Meng asked. When the teachers praise us, they will reward us with a little red flower, which proves that we are good children. Wang Yihan said proudly, I have 22 little red flowers now. Meng, are you and Yihan good friends? Suyu asked with a smile. Yes. Meng replied. If you go to school with Yihan, you can play together in the daytime and go home with Dad in the afternoon. Meng, go to school with me, I promise it's very interesting. Facing the all-round persuasion, Meng was a little confused. Looking at Zhang Han, Xian, Wang Yihan, and finally her fingers, Meng said in a slightly reluctant tone, okay, I'll go to school. Wow! The adults exchanged smiles with each other. They were fully relieved. It's not easy. Now that Meng had made this decision, it meant that she had really agreed to go to kindergarten. Go and play, Yihan, and talk to Meng about kindergarten, Suyu said with a smile. Well, I see, Meng, let's go to the sofa. I'm telling you, in kindergarten, the adults also relaxed and started chatting. It was nearly 10 o'clock when Wang Jian and his family left. Ziqi and Suyu left at the same time. When they came back to the bedroom, Xian again told Meng something about kindergarten. With the efforts of the adults, Meng finally agreed to go to school. Although she was reluctant, she would not regret having made this decision. That night, Xian promised Meng to let her sleep beside Zhang Han, and Meng was happy. After listening to a story, Meng soon fell asleep beside Zhang Han. Xian smiled, leaned on the other side of Zhang Han, and fell asleep slowly. At nearly 8 o'clock the next morning, Wang Jian put Suyu and Wang Yihan at the door of the restaurant and then went to work. Zhang Han and Xian walked out of the restaurant with Meng. They had made an appointment to go to school together. Xian was in the front seat, and Suyu and the two little girls were in the back seat. Meng, we are not going to my school, we are going to another kindergarten together. Wang Yihan said excitedly, I'm going to a new school. Obviously, Suyu and Wang Jian had prepared well last night, but I still want Papa to accompany me. Meng muttered. Daddy and Mummy can't go to kindergarten. The day will soon pass, and they will come to pick us up in the evening, Wang Yihan said. Okay. Meng answered. Soon, they arrived at St. Kindergarten again. There were still many cars in front of the entrance, and Zhang Han found a parking lot close to the school to stop the car. Well, here we are, let's get out of the car, Zhang Han said, then opened the door and got out. He took Meng out of the car, arranged her school bag, and praised her, so beautiful. HMPH. Meng pouted her lips and snorted. After 2 seconds of silence, she said, Papa, what's the matter? Zhang Han chuckled and replied, I'll get a little red flower. Meng looked up at Zhang Han and said with determination, I want to make you happy, and I'm sure I can get a little red flower. Clatter, clatter. Looking at the little girl's expression, for a moment, Zhang Han felt a warm current flowing in his heart. His nose twitched. He felt that he was being cared for and loved by his daughter. What a great feeling. In addition to happiness and pride, he had some other complex feelings. Maybe this was the love between parents and children, which lit up Zhang Han's world. Dad will wait for your little red flower. Every time you take a little red flower back, Dad will promise you one thing. Zhang Han touched Meng's head. Even if there was no little red flower, Zhang Han would promise his little princess everything. But hearing this, Meng was happy. Really? Of course. Zhang Han smiled. While they were talking, Suyu and Wang Yihan also got out of the car. Xian didn't get out because there were still several people taking photos across the street. Seeing Zhang Han and Meng standing with Suyu and Wang Yihan, she felt a little uncomfortable. Then she saw Suyu say something to Zhang Han, and then go back to the back seat of her car. Obviously, Suyu was also considerate, or she was good at thinking of others. So Zhang Han walked into the school with the two little girls. The students still gathered in the small square not far from the entrance. When they went straight to the square, Lu Go, who was far away, saw and approached them. Mr. Zhang. Lugo greeted Zhang Han and then smiled at Meng Meng. Meng Meng's here, a lot of children are waiting for you to play with them, and they all want to be your friend. This is Wang Yihan, right? Good morning, teacher. Wang Yihan greeted Lugo. Our teacher, her surname is Lu, and we should call her teacher Lu. Meng Meng introduced her. We should say, good morning, teacher Lu. Okay, good morning, teacher Lu. Wang Yihan chuckled. Good morning, girls. Meng Meng's memory is so good. Come on, we will go to the class later, Lugo said with a smile. Meng Meng looked at Zhang Han and said pitifully, Papa, you must pick me up soon. Dad is sure to pick up Meng Meng on time. Zhang Han nodded. Then, the two little girls, hand in hand, were taken to their classmates by Lugo. Meng Meng turned around several times while walking, and was very reluctant to leave Papa. Wait a minute, teacher, please come here. Zhang Han suddenly thought of something and said in a loud voice. Lugo was surprised. She turned around and walked back a few steps. What's the matter, Mr. Zhang? Is there anything I forgot to say? Yes. Zhang Han took a glance at Meng Meng and said in a low voice, do you have little red flowers here? Chapter 470, New to Kindergarten. Little red flower? Lugo paused and asked, do you mean the little red flowers given to kids as a reward? Yeah? Zhang Han nodded slightly. We have them, Lugo replied with a smile. The little red flower is just a basic reward. Children would lose interest in it after they get it many times, so we have prepared other rewards. For instance, kids could collect 15 little red flowers to get a trophy. The first 15 flowers could be exchanged for a relatively small crescent trophy, and the next few trophies will be bigger and bigger. With the fifth 15 flowers, one could get a customized grand cup. We also encourage parents to praise or reward their kids when they get little red flowers or trophies. Then I'll rest assured. Zhang Han smiled and said, Teacher Lu, please take care of Meng Meng. If anything happens, call me immediately. I'm free at any time. Lugo smiled and nodded. Okay, Mr. Zhang, just relax. We can take good care of Meng Meng, whether it's about rewards or anything else. Well, Teacher Lu, I will leave. Zhang Han said goodbye to Meng Meng and waved. He shouted, Meng Meng, I'll pick you up in the afternoon. Goodbye, Papa. Meng Meng waved her small hand. Then Zhang Han turned around and left the kindergarten. Standing at the entrance and looking inside, Zhang Han's eyes brightened slightly. He saw Meng Meng and Wang Yihan holding hands, led by Lugo to the group of class 5. Meng Meng was a little nervous, and she blinked her big eyes and looked around curiously. Wang Yihan was quite used to the surroundings. Judging from the composure in her eyes, she was an expert. After all, she had been in kindergarten for a year, and she was used to the group life. Zhang Han was relieved when he saw Meng Meng was quiet. 2 seconds later, Zhang Han sighed deeply. Now that Meng Meng was in kindergarten, what should he do? He wouldn't be able to see Meng Meng in the daytime, so he felt like there was something missing. Xian was going to work in 2 days. He would be alone in the restaurant. Shall I apply to be a janitor in kindergarten? Zhang Han suddenly mumbled. If people in the martial arts world knew Zhang Han's intention, if they knew that Luxun was in a kindergarten, they would be extremely shocked. What kind of kindergarten would hire a fierce martial artist, namely Zhang Han, who just got 3rd on the list of top martial artists, and another martial artist, Luxun, who ranked the 5th on the same list? If the kindergarten became the most famous one for that reason, Liu Shan would be so glad that he might laugh out loud in his dreams. Zhang Han smiled, shook his head, and walked back to his panda car. 2 more panda-like ears were added to the car, so its cute appearance attracted everybody's attention. When Zhang Han went back to the car, Xian asked in a hurry, what happened? How was Meng Meng? Did she cry? Her voice was full of anxiety. She didn't see Meng Meng, which meant that the girl was in kindergarten. Xian just worried that the girl might cry. She didn't cry. Zhang Han touched Xian's neck with a smile and said softly, Meng Meng behaved well. She promised she would bring back a little red flower for me and asked me to pick her up earlier this afternoon. Ah. Xian sighed with relief and patted her chest gently, then smiled and said, That's good, we'll pick her up half an hour earlier in the afternoon. Then Xian turned to look at Suyu and said with a smile, Thank you so much this time. Without Yihan, Meng Meng wouldn't have accepted it so soon. Yeah? Zhang Han nodded. Yihan really helped. You mustn't say that. Suyu's face was slightly red, and she said with a smile, I'm embarrassed. We're so happy for Yihan to go to Saint Kindergarten. We owe you a great favor. Ha ha ha. Zhang Han shook his head with a smile and said, Where do you live? I'll drive you back. No need, let's just go back to the restaurant. I'll take a taxi and go back later. My home isn't far from New Moon Bay. Suyu waved and said, It's fine, we've got nothing to do later, we'll take you home first. Xian said, You live in the eastern Zikeng district, right? It's not far from New Moon Bay, we'll follow the road on the right in front. All right. Suyu didn't insist, she said, I live in Kiji City, on Liulai South Road. Okay. Zhang Han started the car and drove directly to Zukeng district. On the other side. Well, let's go back to the classroom first, you should follow me. Lugo clapped her hands in front of the class 5 students. With all the kids looking at her, she took the lead to walk to the teaching building. Wang Yihan held Meng Meng's hand and followed Lugo closely. The child behind them was also a girl with short hair and a chubby face. She and Wang Yihan looked similar, but she was taller than Wang Yihan and shorter than Meng Meng. HMPH. She was unhappy to see 2 other kids standing in front of her, so she snorted discontentedly. She liked to be the first one, and now she felt like her place was replaced. Lugo was leading the group of children. Another female teacher was in the middle of the team, who was nearly 30 and had a ponytail. She taught Cantonese. At the back of the team was a tall girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, who taught English. Lugo was the teacher in charge of the class, namely, the head teacher, and she taught Mandarin. The other 2 teachers would also stay in the class all day because some children only spoke English, others only knew Cantonese, the rest only spoke Mandarin, and only a few of them could speak 3 languages. Lugo was proficient in all 3 languages, so the other 2 teachers could take a rest when they were occupied, then come back in to teach in their own languages. Here we are, this is our classroom. When they went in, Lugo stood on the platform, with Wang Yihan and Meng Meng nearby. The other kids rushed to their seats. In the middle of the classroom, there was an empty seat. The other 2 teachers sat in the big chairs on the side. Lugo stood there and said, Today, we have 2 new classmates, shall we let them introduce themselves? Okay. Several kids shouted clearly. Lugo looked down at Meng Meng and said in a low voice, Meng Meng, take a few steps forward, introduce yourself, what you like and what you can do. For example, my name is Lugo, I like to play with children, and I'm good at playing the piano, something like that. Even though Lugo explained it very clearly, Meng Meng was still confused. She walked forward with her big school bag, her big eyes blinking. Facing nearly 20 kids in front of her, she was very nervous. The little girl was new to kindergarten. Meng Meng was so cute that everybody went silent, and the other 2 teachers also looked at her with a smile. Meng Meng was very nervous. She looked at Lugo and Wang Yihan in a daze. Well, Lugo understood the girl's feelings, so she thought about it then decided to make Wang Yihan try first. It would be much easier for the second speaker if someone else took the lead. If Wang Yihan couldn't, other children could come first. Before she said anything, Wang Yihan bounced to stand beside Meng Meng. Let me introduce myself first. The chubby girl looked like an expert. She said directly, my name is Wang Yihan, and my friends all call me Yihan. I'll tell you this, I'm actually in the senior class. This time, I came to accompany my good friend to the junior class. My hobby is to eat delicious food, especially the food made by Meng Meng's dad. I'm good at painting. Every time I draw, my dad says it's beautiful. Welcome, Wang Yihan. Lugo took the lead in clapping her hands, and the children also applauded. Then the classroom was full of thunderous applause. Meng Meng was shocked when she heard the applause and saw kids staring and the three teachers laughing. She was still nervous, but she wanted the warm applause after she introduced herself. Lugo looked at Meng Meng thoughtfully. Chairman Luo came to her office in person and said that she had to take good care of Meng Meng. Now Wang Yihan introduced that she came to accompany Meng Meng. Apparently, Mr. Zhang had a high social status and was powerful. The kindergarten made an exception for his daughter, and some friend could also attend the school just to keep the girl company. However, Lugo didn't care much about that stuff. She paid attention to every kid. When it came to one's family, she never mentioned that her grandfather was powerful enough. Even Luo Shan didn't know about this. Only the school's security knew that they had an old janitor who was a martial artist. It's your turn, Lugo said to Meng Meng with a smile. My name is Meng Meng. No, my name is Zhang Yuman. Everyone calls me Meng Meng. My hobby is watching cartoons with Papa. I'm good at singing and playing games. Meng Meng had said it incoherently, then her big eyes blinked, showing that she was nervous. That's good. Lugo encouraged her and clapped her hands. Welcome, Meng Meng. Clatter, clatter. Everyone applauded. Meng Meng was happy when she heard their applause. Well, welcome our two classmates. Now from Xuanhuan to Martin, everyone, move one seat to the right. Lugo made a request. Xuanhuan was the little girl sitting on the right side of the central empty seat. She was the same girl with short hair in the small square. Martin, on the right side, was the most outstanding black student. After Lugo spoke, Martin began to move to the right, but Xuanhuan pouted and said unhappily, Teacher, why are we moving seats? I want to sit here. Xuanhuan, Lugo smiled and said softly, because we have two new students, we all welcome them. There is only one seat, and we should move to make room for them. Lugo thought and added, and we used to change seats every other week. Xuanhuan, let's think of this change as one in advance, okay? All right. Xuanhuan answered reluctantly, then took out her school bag from the desk and moved one seat to Teacher Lu's right. Meng Meng, Yihan, sit there, put your bags under the desk, Lugo said with a smile. Let's go. Wang Yihan took Meng Meng's small hand and walked to the left. She sat on the right side of Meng Meng, and Meng Meng was on the right side of Xuanhuan. Meng Meng saw that Xuanhuan was looking at her, so she greeted her. Nice to meet you. HMPH. Xuanhuan pursed her lips and turned around. Meng Meng froze. She was sad when she felt Xuanhuan's dislike. She felt wronged. Why doesn't she like me? Meng Meng, we don't have to talk to her. Don't play with her. Wang Yihan looked over and said. Her words didn't cheer Meng Meng up. She still looked sad. Lugo clapped her hands and attracted the children's attention. Today, we have two new students. The rest of you don't know each other yet. You should introduce yourselves to others, like the introduction just made by the two new students, starting from Stephen here. Lugo pointed to the little boy on her left. The handsome little boy with blonde hair and blue eyes was one of the students whose name left an impression on Lugo. Stephen's expression was a little serious, as if he was a polite little prince. Hearing what the teacher said, he stood up, bent slightly, and spoke loudly in English. My name is Stephen. Then he repeated what he said in Mandarin and Cantonese. My name is Stephen. I come from England. My hobby is listening to music and playing football. After the introduction, Stephen nodded his head in a decent way, then sat back with a straight face. Lugo and the other two teachers were impressed that Stephen could speak three languages, English, Cantonese, and Mandarin. He was exceptional. Clatter, clatter. Lugo took the lead in clapping her hands, and the children also applauded. Meng Meng looked around with her big eyes, then also clapped her small hands. It's amazing to clap for others. Meng Meng bore the foreign kid's name in mind, Stephen. Then 7 or 8 children introduced themselves. Huh? What were their names again? I forgot. Well, Meng Meng and Wang Yihan just did the introduction. Now it's Xinran's turn, Lugo said with a smile. My name is Luke Xinran. My hobbies are swimming and dancing. I'm good at dancing. I can do a peacock dance. Everyone applauded when she finished. Meng Meng stared at her and applauded as well. When Xinran saw Meng Meng applauding, she suddenly didn't mind that her place had been taken away. But still, she didn't talk to Meng Meng. Meng Meng was upset. Then the introductions got around to the last student. A black kid, Martin. He was very outgoing. He stood up and smiled, showing 2 rows of white teeth. Then he took his notebook out, and he obviously did some preparation work. He said slowly in Mandarin, My name is Martin. I come from Africa. My hobby is watching TV, playing with friends, and making friends with people. I'm also good at telling jokes. I'll show you one now. Well, welcome, Martin. Please come on stage. Lugo praised her students for their voluntary performance and waved to Martin with a smile. Martin immediately came to Lugo's side. Lugo took out her phone and turned on the camera. She was ready to send the video to Martin's father to take a look. I'm ready, Martin said and looked around 2 times. Then his eyes fixed on Meng Meng at last. That, new, little sister, recently, there has been a rumor that I like you. I want to clarify it. Martin paused, drew a heart with his hands and said with a smile. That's not a rumor, little sister, you are so beautiful, I like you. Meng Meng felt shy and embarrassed, but her heart was full of happiness. Some kids liked her. Meng Meng thought they could play games together. Martin's words didn't make the children feel that it was very funny. They were confused, but still they clapped. Lugo didn't know what to do. Looking at Martin, she didn't know what to say at the moment. Encourage him? Could she say, young man, well done, now you know how to flirt, and with a beautiful and lovely little sister? No, she could never say that. Discourage him? When a student performed on stage, a teacher should praise his act. Lugo was caught in the middle. In the end, she said, Martin's performance is good, go back and sit down. As for the video, Lugo didn't send it to his parents. Being so slick at a young age, he might lose control one day. The kid would have to learn from his father. No. Wang Yihan beside Meng Meng said earnestly to Martin, you can't like Meng Meng. Meng Meng's father won't let you. You can't hug Meng Meng or kiss her either. The girl had been in kindergarten for a year, but she was still simple and naive. The other 2 teachers laughed. Martin scratched his head and couldn't figure out what she said. Huh? Meng Meng was confused. Then she mumbled, you can't hug or kiss me. Ha ha ha. Lugo laughed and said, Yihan is right. Boys and girls can't hug or kiss each other, but you can like each other. It's like friends. You can play games and eat together. Really? Meng Meng's eyes brightened as she looked at Lugo and asked with courage. It's true. Meng Meng giggled when she got permission. She thought, the first day in kindergarten and someone likes me. Everyone knows each other now. Shall we play a little game? Lugo asked with a smile. Yes. A lot of children answered clearly. The game is called passing the handkerchief. Lugo took out a handkerchief with a rose pattern from her bag and said, the handkerchief starts being passed from the first kid and goes on one by one. When I say stop, whoever has the handkerchief should perform. Don't cheat, don't go too fast or too slow. Then she passed the handkerchief to Stephen, the first one on the left. The little guy looked calm, like he was saying, bring it.